Welcome to Let's Get It, the Atheist Roundtable.
That was terrible. Let's do that again.
Pass the mic, what you doing? What that everybody study I don't get it. He lost his shit. The whole thing caboodle. Now pause. You pause. Everybody telling that he's a lost cause. Who's the ass in the head? Christian ass. Always talking this and talking that. Benji on the epistemology. You got claims, got beliefs. What's your confidence? And is it relevant? Nah. Just Jeff. What's next? What text you gonna put to the test? Put to the test. Little troll face weasel on TikTok looking like a beetle juice. And what do you do when a member of your crew sits in a shed with the dead? I don't know what's up. Anybody seen TJump? Now the newest member of the crew. The Tart debut, here's your preview. It's K Nabs. She says she's the live stream queen. Welcome to the team. Yeah. Welcome to the team.
The Atheist Roundtable.
Is faith a reliable pathway to truth? Hey, yo, Oz, are we going on a deep dive?
Faith is bullshit. Jesus in the morning.
I still can't do a proper introduction after that. Welcome to the Atheist Roundtable. This is the Tart late night show. And we got some other folks that are going to be joining us here soon. But we got Mr. Jim Benton in the house. He joined us several months ago. But he's got the stogie. He's got the drink ready to go. Then we got Eddie. Eddie, get sweaty, better get ready. What's up, Eddie?
What up?
You know. And it's your boy Oz. I'm here. And I finally found myself cornered by two theists, so we'll see how this goes until somebody comes to my rescue here. But before we get into it, Eddie, now that you have had some time to chill, get a drink, think for a minute, how'd the debate go, man?
I thought it went pretty well. I was a little more aggressive than I probably should have been. I took I took some things personal that he said, and I let it kind of get the best of me, and I shouldn't have. So I kind of feel a little wrong for interrupting his opening and kind of being a little more combative than I should have been.
Nope, and I think, to be fair, I think all of us at some point in those, and I'll be point blank. There's been points where in certain conversations like that, when I first started getting into those dialogues, that I got into the emotion of it rather than the argument. I got into the emotion that, and I'm not saying this to call you out, but you said it, like, this dude talks shit. So now I get, so when you get caught up in that, that's when you start putting your emotions on the table rather than just the argument.
Yeah.
And that's where, luckily, Pasta Mike has helped me and mentored me to help me, get through. Like, it's not about that. It's about keeping the argument on the table. What is it that you believe? Why do you believe what you believe? So on and so forth. But you know what, man, for debate number 2, Eddie, great job, man.
I appreciate it.
Great job. And I'm an atheist. And I will say that fight one, and I know you guys are going to do a number two, but fight one went to Eddie, and that's coming from the atheist. And I said that when we were live, so it's not like I'm just saying this now. I said it when we were live with Mike on screen. Fight one went to Eddie, and we'll see how number two goes. But I think the biggest thing in that type of argument, it's the contingency argument. It's tough to, without going through all the details again. It's tough to actually have a debate on that, because I feel like you have to almost debate each premise.
Well, that's how it should be. He should have attacked my premises. That's why when I went back through it, I was asking him if he had an issue with the premise, because, if you're in a debate and someone presents an argument and you agree to the conclusion, you really have just given the debate up. And the thing about the contingency argument is, like I said in the beginning, it's part of a group of arguments. There's not a single argument, that's going to get you to a necessary, powerful, all-loving, God. So it's really an accumulative case. So when we do debates like this, it really, he was asking, well, I thought we were going to talk about God. Like God, the Christian God. Well, that's when I gave him the choice to pick the topic. I threw that out there because I knew he couldn't interact with it, just joking, hoping for a counter to it. Well, let's talk about this, that, or the other. And he wanted to go with the contingency. And I'm like, okay, we'll go with the contingency, Right. So it's a really technical argument. And I really had to strip it down bare bones so that he would seem to, because it's really technical and there's a lot of premises and a lot of support. Having to strip it down like that, it seems like I'm drawing conclusions that aren't, supported by the premises, when really there's a lot of support for it. But I would also have to explain more terms, what those mean. And if he doesn't understand modal logic or S5 logic, then he's never going to get it. Yeah. So it was kind of just, hey, you want to go with this? We'll go with it.
Yeah, it was. He's not here to represent himself, so I'm not going to say anything.
No. I don't want to do that.
And I know you're not. But I don't want to come across as attacking his argument style or position because he's not here. That's a tough one to argue from the atheist standpoint if you're not willing to attack each. Each point. You got to go through each point and attack each point. If you try to do it as a singular thing, that's when it gets convoluted. That's when it gets I can't remember the word I used during the debate, but that's when it gets plugged up. Yeah. It's plugged up when you try to just put it all in one lump. But no, so just Jeff is waiting patiently backstage, and he definitely looks like a 1990 Christian. I'm just going to say that. But before we do this, because he's in complete troll mode right now, I can see it on his face. Before we do that, I'm laughing because you guys can't see him. I can see him, and I'm dying.
Does he have one of those fake love t-shirts on?
But before we bring him on, so this is the first time. This is the first time, and whether it's and now he's dancing. He's dancing and doing something. I don't know what he's doing.
On the ceiling.
He's got his Bible and praising God. But I'm not going to look at that. So let's take a few moments before we bring him on. This is the first time that we've had on Tart. We've had two theists and myself on a screen.
Tag team.
And the numbers are now unbalanced, not in my favor, but in your favor as theists. So when we talk about a God claim, what is it? Is there anything that you guys would want to ask me, to say to me, anything like that before we bring anybody else on? Because I've always wanted to have the tables turned, and we finally have that.
You want me to go, Jay?
Yeah, Eddie, I think you'll be more prepared for me. I'm more of a, as I was talking about, I'm more of a conversationalist and stuff like that. I'm not a very attack dog oriented when it comes to this.
Why do a lot, I'm not going to say most or all, but why do a lot of atheists not understand that reason is a type of evidence?
What do you mean by that? I think I need more clarity.
How you can come to factual thing. I think I'm making my camera worse. I'm sorry. how you can it doesn't seem that it's accepted that you can come to true statements or facts using reason and not necessarily tangible, physical, repeatable evidence. The power, like to reason your way to a belief or a fact or something about the world. It doesn't seem to be accepted by a lot of atheists that reasoning itself, logic, can lead to things that we can know. We don't, it seems to always be, it has to be testable, repeatable, and things of that nature.
Well, yeah, which would fall into logic and reason, which then would fall into that systematic process of, if we apply logic and we apply reason, those things should be reasonable and be logical, meaning that we should be able to at least observe them, see if it's duplicatable, see if it's observable, and is it testable? The best model I throw out, Eddie, on that is just on a very humanistic level. If I'm a businessman and you're a businessman, and I come to you and I say, Eddie, I have this brilliant business model, and I'm put in front of you, and here's what it is: sign the paperwork. Where you're going to say, okay, but what's the probability of this succeeding? Like, do you have anything that's testable? Do you have data? Do you have anything that suggests do you have anything that shows a forecast that's going to demonstrate that I'm going to get an ROI, a return on my investment? Do you have any of that data? And if I just tell you, well, no, Eddie, I don't have any of that. All I have is me asking you just to trust me, because that's what it takes. Trust and faith is what it takes to understand that this is going to work. I just need you to sign the paperwork and let's be done. Yeah. Are you going to sign that paperwork?
Yeah, and my pushback would be, perception of things in the world can count up to a reasonable understanding without having to put it under a microscope or having someone to confirm it for you, things of that nature. And that's how we live our life every day.
But hold on. What I gave you has nothing to do with a microscope or science.
Right.
That was complete logic and reason, right? And common sense.
Right. But you're using logic and reason I would be using logic and reason based off of, what had happened in the past, but you don't have anything that's testable and repeatable for it. So I'm actually using logic. Well, I'm actually using logic and reason through perception or things in the past or things of that nature to come to the conclusion that it will be successful. So at that point, you don't have anything testable or repeatable. You can just say, hey, look, I've been successful in the past. You got a good track record, and I can come to a reasoning that you will probably have a successful business model. So I would argue that when we're looking at reality and the nature of reality, the things that we see are those things that we can put together to come to a logical conclusion through reasoning that this is probably why they're that way.
So yes or no, then you would have signed that business model?
Oh, no.
Well, okay. Hang on. The business model for a minute though. Like, has this person a record? Like, does this person have a narrative or a systematic process that is sound or valid or whatever you want to terminology we want to use, and then also understanding that like it has like you can still do something and still arrive at a different result. So I mean, two things can still be true at the same time. Now, I guess the question then becomes, what's the highest form of truth?
Well,
that's like taking this down a completely different. That's like
let me throw this caveat out there too, real quick. I'm not talking about certainty. I am not certain that God exists. So when we do talk about using the reasoning and coming to the conclusion, it just seems more plausible to me that God exists. So I want you to understand, when we do use these arguments and reasoning and stuff like that, we're not coming to the conclusion that it's most certainly God that exists. It's just support in the idea, or it's more plausible is where we're at.
I'm definitely not trying to change the hypothetical either, because I know like that's like its own little thing, fallacy you can start going down. So like I do get it. I'm just saying there's also a lot more to decision making.
And I don't think it's totally irrational to know.
Well, but I'll tell you right now, the business model that I was basing that on, and Benton, thank you for saying that, is I do have a proven track record in business and sales, and even if I put something in front of somebody who said, no, I actually have a proven track record in X, Y, and Z. If I did not provide or was not willing to provide the statistics, the forecasting, and the probability of that, why in the world would anybody sign off on that? Right?
Well, forecasts are inherently incorrect, and that's from a mathematical perspective.
What's that?
Forecasts are mathematically incorrect. I mean, that's why you measure your margin of error in some cases. So,
and I don't think that's an analogical to, or an analogy to, what reasoning for a God is. I don't think it's a good analogy for that.
Well, hold on, because I haven't finished yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So in that proposition, I put all that. Forget I just said that part. I'm putting the business model in front of somebody, and I'm going to ask somebody. So then Eddie asked me, Oz, what is the return on the investment? What's the ROI? What is the projections? What are we going to do year 1, year 2, year 3, so on and so forth? And I tell him, Eddie, what I need you to do is just understand that some things that you just have to believe me. You just have to trust me. You have to trust that I've done this before. You have to believe that I've done this before, and just know that I've executed this shit before.
Like everyone and everywhere says that.
Now, and whether you knew that I do have a track record or not, and I'm just asking you to take it. Now I'm asking you to take it on, whether you call it faith, good faith, blind faith, it doesn't matter. You're taking it on faith. Are you going to sign that business plan?
No,
absolutely not. Right. And that's my argument with that, is why would we buy anything, or why would we sign our name to anything that we don't have the evidence? We don't have the actual proof that this is real. Like this is the winning ticket. This is the golden ticket. Why do we sign our lives away to that when we don't know?
Yeah, I would argue that that's the case that I'm making, is we can have that evidence through reasoning with our faculties. We can't, and that's what all of these arguments are showing, that there has to be a necessary something. There has to be a first cause. There has to be something that grounds universal abstract. When we add the God hypothesis to all of these scenarios, then that's what I'm talking about, reasoning to the truth of reality.
But let me jump in there, Eddie. You said there has to be. So now you're saying that there it's a must.
No, that I'm using the term colloquially, like just everyday use. I mean, it doesn't technically have to be, but it appears to be a beginning to the universe given the standard cosmological model. So it would seem to suggest that there is a reason that it began its initial expansion at one point and it wasn't there. Whether we go with the laws of motion or thermodynamics or whatever, So it seems to point to a first cause. So I don't mean it like pedantically has to be. There's no other way. Because I think that God is still, I mean, I don't even think that if there wasn't a first cause to the universe and it was eternal, you still don't escape, necessity and contingency and things of that nature.
Well, so I'll say this, and then we'll like Jeff is about to like pop through the camera right now, so I'm gonna bring him on.
That's this guy.
But we'll do this, and then we'll, because I know it's going to go funny here for a minute. We'll bring it back to we'll bring it back to this. But that is my that is my hiccup with not just you, Eddie, but anybody that has that argument. Is it's not a have to or a need to when it comes to an eternal, eternal being or a supernatural being or a God. That is not. We don't have to have that. That's not a necessity. But we'll get in that in a minute. Let's press pause because we'll keep going. But let's because I feel like Jeff's gonna be. Oh, it's Brad. I'm sorry, it's Brad.
Brad.
What the hell?
I just got done with youth Bible study. Still in the Lord.
Amen.
Amen, guys.
That's priceless.
Loving Jesus.
Are you staying clean and precious and not?
Oh, I had some impure thoughts earlier, and I was like, "Get away, Satan!"
You got to
pray to Jesus.
You went full on Matthew, right? You said, "Devil."
Not today, Satan. Not today, Satan.
Not today.
With the shield of the Lord, nothing will hurt me.
I'm sorry. Every time I hear
you have, and I'm now an atheist. Do you have tangible evidence for that? Is it practical?
I don't need evidence.
Could you?
I have faith. I don't need evidence.
God is stupid. He's mean. I wouldn't worship him anyway.
Wish you didn't say that.
God is so evil.
Brad, Jeff would be so mad if he heard you talk about God the way you do, because Jeff's a cool guy and he doesn't want people talking about him like that. That's blasphemy against just Jeff the God.
You're not God. You can't tell me what to do.
But Jeff can.
I listen to Jesus.
Jeff's God.
Only Jesus is my light. He is my light. Because he is Lord. He is Lord. He is Lord.
Oh. Woo, let's get the praise going.
You go to a church that I don't go to, brother.
He's at the Church of LSD. Not to be confused with the Latter-day Saints.
I have no idea what just happened to this stream.
I'm just going to praise Jesus.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep. So
I just got off TikTok. I was hearing some good arguments, and I just thought I'd join.
Jeff, Titan Uranus said, "That's a look. It's not a good look, but it's a look."
The best look on me is the glory of Jesus Christ, which is inside of me right now. Jesus, I can feel him inside of me.
How's it make you feel?
It makes me feel full.
This guy Mark that's in the chat, Mark Slong, he does a fantastic young Earth creationist. We should try to get him on here.
Hey, Jeff, do the hair flip like Bieber again.
Eddie, like another day in Jesus' glory.
Eddie has to stop. He hasn't had hair since he was 5.
35, that is.
Your hat, so I'm not doing that game.
Oh, the air just blowing my hair. I'm having a bad hair day. It's man.
The only year that has a bad hair day is me.
Bad hair days for beard are real thing.
Like,
Water is terrible for your beard. It just makes it go.
I was growing my beard out for I had a good month and a half worth of growth. It looked okay, and then all of a sudden, I had to shave because I have interviews.
I'm with Eddie.
Yep, that's right. God only made a few perfect heads. The rest of them he put hair on.
Yeah, that's a fact here.
No, I'm with Pasta. He said we ain't losing hair. We're just getting more head.
Woo!
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, my hair was running away from my face, so I had to cut it off.
I like the other one better. I ain't losing hair. I'm getting more head. Yeah. Mark Slough, he said, hair reveal, Austin.
Can I read to you from the word of Jesus?
By
Yeah.
all means.
I got
You know-
Genesis
Chapter 8,
Um,
verse 21.
hey, Brad.
Yeah.
Brad, this is what I'm going to need you to do. I'm going to pull you on the big screen. Okay. And I want you to read something really dirty from like Song of Solomon's or whatever.
There's nothing dirty. I'm reading Genesis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Song of
Just-
Solomon, baby.
There's nothing wrong with the Bible. Anything you read out of it can't be taken out of context because it's from a one.
Okay. Whatever you say, Brad, just read it while I refill my drink. And then as soon as we're done, we're taking Brad off the screen and we'll bring Jeff back on.
Okay.
I want to follow along with you in my scripture here.
Okay. Go ahead. It's Genesis chapter 8, verse 21. And the Lord smelled a sweet Savior. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. That what you need to learn from that is if you're young, teenager, child, and you have an imagination, just know that you're evil and you should not have an imagination.
See, mine doesn't say that. It says, may he smother me with kisses.
Well, your Bible is evil.
Your
You
love
gotta use the one and only. There's
more
only one
fragrant
Bible that's correct.
than wine. Fragrant is the sense of your anointing oils. That is why the maidens love you. Take me with you. Let us make haste. Bring me into your chamber, O king. Are you mesmerized, Brad?
I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Did I?
I've never heard these words.
Oh, wait a minute. Where's the gazelles in the hills? That one's good right there. Yeah, that really gets into the sexual part of it.
Can you
What?
describe these acts in more detail?
While the king reclines on his couch, my spikenard gives forth its scent. My beloved is for me a sachet of myrrh lying between my breasts. My beloved is for me a spray of henna blossom from the vineyards of Engedi. That sounds like that's like getting real here. Our couch is shaded with branches. The beams of our
Did you
house
say couch?
are of cedar, yes. Our rafters are all of pine. Yeah, they didn't have recliners back then. Or actually, they probably did. With little Brads fanning them with leaves. A lily among thorns is my dearest among the maidens, like an apple tree among the trees of the forest. So is my beloved among young men. That's for you, Brad. To sit in his shadow is my delight, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. I wonder what fruit's in mine. He has taken me into the wine garden and given me loving glances, sustained me with raisins, revived me with apples, for I am faint with love. Okay, that's enough. This is getting too deep. It's
Too deep. Yeah. Too deep.
theoretically,
There's no Greek and figure out what all this shit means now.
theoretically said it's Bible porn.
Fat.
Are there pictures in your Bible?
Oh Lord, man, I'm
Or mine.
I'm sweating up in here, yo. That Jesus, man. Woo.
I actually do have pictures in my Bible of
Do you?
of naked Renaissance art. It's pretty interesting.
Wow. So you have a pornographic Bible?
I would say it's classified as pornographic. Technically,
Hey,
that's
Jeff, that's as turned on as Brad, that's as turned on as you get right there. It's Israel, oh Lord. That should just get your fancy going.
there's a perfect phallus right there, and right there is the Sea of Galilee where Jesus did all of his things. Right there.
Oh, Mark made a good point. We have to go to the authorized only word of God, King James only.
Right.
That's
I go further back than that. This isn't Latin.
Oh wow.
The seed.
Are you Latin?
No, but I speak Latin.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I can read it too.
Wow,
Man, the Dead Sea Scrolls must have been you must have been nerding out with that.
you impress me every.
That's Old Testament. I don't care about that. It doesn't count. Only the New Testament counts.
Hey, you're getting there. You're starting to understand it. So, what about the marriage?
Why does the New Testament count?
Well, because Jesus fulfilled the Old Testament prophecies, completing the cycle and starting the cycle for the next anomaly.
Anomaly?
Yes.
What's an anomaly?
Jesus is the anomaly. It's inherent to the code of the programming.
What? 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 Whoa! Where did we
Matrix came out.
What are you talking about?
prophesy for us?
Yeah, Jesus is the anomaly.
Can you heal me? Can you heal my heart? It's broken.
Can he
No,
bend-
but Jesus can because he's the anomaly.
Like statistical anomaly? I would agree with that.
Some people just don't get along with the programming.
It's hard to take you seriously.
oracle that you consult with?
What's that?
An oracle that you consult with?
No. Just Jesus.
Does the Holy Spirit teach you when you read the Bible?
I can feel the Holy Spirit tingle up my back when I read the Bible.
So it illuminates the truth for you?
It illuminates something.
All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, Brad, thank you very much. And if you'll go holler at your big brother, Jeff, and tell him he can come back when he was ready.
That concludes the Bible porn hour. That's a new segment there, Oz.
Everybody, welcome Brad. I don't know what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I apologize for Brad. But the good thing is Brad went and woke up his big brother, Jeff. And I have no problem having Jeff on the screen. So so Jeff's here, and now we can have a little more adult grown-up conversations and not talk about whatever the fuck it was he was talking about there at the end.
Hey, huge ass in the comments wants to know where the debate with Mike is.
It's in the stream. If it's not populated yet, sometime YouTube delays. You might have to look at it tomorrow. But it'll be there. And even as the atheists have already said, Eddie won. He won round one, and we'll see how round two goes.
Down each of the units.
No, back to what we're talking about. Whether you want to talk about a business proposition or whatever it is, it's
the logical argument isn't the only part of the equation that we need from you.
Yeah, well, and let me rewind. Let's not rewind. Let's maybe fast forward past that. Maybe I said too much there. Maybe I polluted or dirtied the waters there. How is it that you two, and now it's fair, it's two atheists, two theists. How are you convinced that there is a God? And now you have two people on screen with you that formerly believed that there was a God. Now we're not convinced that there is a God. What is it that convinces you that doesn't convince us?
They're, basically the same answer that I've given. There's so many things that we can't answer with naturalism alone. There's the universal abstracts, things of that nature. So to have all of these things that are universal and transcends human beings, and yeah.
No, I was telling him to wait. You go ahead.
Oh, these being itself. Why is there something rather than nothing? It appears that the universe, had a beginning. It appears that the universe is fine-tuned for carbon-based life. All of these things that we call, metaphysics, because it's just things that we can only go so far with the physical sciences, seeing the, material things. I'm just not happy with they exist as brute facts. They're just the way that life is, when it seems like there is a hypothesis that would easily answer all of these universal abstracts, all of these, why there's something rather than nothing, these deep philosophical quandaries that we have.
And I'll let Jeff talk, but the one key word in everything you just said there is seems. That's the key word that sticks out. But Jeff, I know you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, are you just using God as a placeholder for things we don't know?
No.
So do you think that if we had this conversation 1,000 years ago and we didn't know how weather worked, you'd be using weather as an example of things we don't understand, therefore God?
Oh, it's possible. Yeah. But I don't think that it necessarily follows it, because some people have put God as a question or an answer to some questions, that God is just an answer to all questions we don't know. I don't think these are questions. These are questions that can't be answered by science, because the science doesn't study, abstract things.
Well, why would God only be evident in abstract thought? Why wouldn't he be evident in both places he resides? Because if naturalism would be evidence of God, if God created natural things in the natural order of things, it follows the same logic that your other logic should follow. So just as evident as it is in your thought experiment, it should be evident in naturalism.
Well, I think it is evident. I think that it appears that things are designed around us, and that there is a hand, involved in, say, DNA programming and things of that nature. But
a lot of DNA is trash. Like, there's a lot of extra that's not needed.
Actually, they're starting to find that what once was considered junk DNA actually has a purpose.
And then, like the bone structure of our feet is a terrible design.
Right. Design according to what?
According to other animals that have a better design.
Why would they be a better design?
Because there's other animals that have better foot structure. We have so many bones in our feet that are unnecessary. And that causes a lot of, look at how many ankle injuries people have because the foot is poorly, and I'm using designed from your viewpoint. I see it not designed by a creator. I see it designed by naturalism.
Evolution?
Correct.
Right. I wouldn't argue with evolution. That's the mechanism that was used by God. But to say better implies
I could design a better foot.
Right. Yeah. Can you design a better foot in this world the way that things are with the balance of the ecosystem? Or without using some type of evolution or things of that nature? See, when you talk about good, bad, efficient, non-efficient, you're talking about constraints. God has no time constraint. There's no more efficiency because there are no constraints on God. So there's not really a more efficient to do it.
Can I jump in here? I am. Thank you. All those Eddie, those are all those are assertions or presuppositions. You're implanting those with no true evidence. And you can't just say, well, logic leads us to evidence, because that's not always true. Just like faith doesn't always lead us to true things. It can also lead us to untrue things. There are certain things that we can follow logic, and it does lead us to an untrue thing. And then we are willing to say, actually, we were wrong in that. Here's the correct thing. And what you're asserting is not leading us to a God claim. It's still leading us to a what if and a possibility.
Right. So I would use the old cliche that you're missing the forest for the trees. That's what I'm talking about. A whole case. If we can sit here and squabble over every single little detail about everything, but if we have this enormous amount of information that's available in DNA that we have no idea how it got there, We look at the universal abstracts. We look at the beginning of the years. We look at fine tune.
No, hold on, Eddie. I want to stop you respectfully. I want to stop you. Do you and I and I already know this, so I don't have to ask the question. You and I respect the hell out of each other. Like I respect the hell out of you. You respect the hell out of me, and we value our friendship. We know that relationship is like it exists. It's real, right? You cannot say that for your relationship with a God. And I cannot say that for my relationship with a God when I was a Christian. I cannot demonstrate that I had conversations with a God. You cannot demonstrate that you had conversations with a God. Just like, we could record all of our conversations and prove that we have a friendship. We have a relationship. And anytime you're going through some hard shit, I'm there for you. When I'm going through some hard shit, you're there for me. You can't demonstrate that. That's the point. Like all of the linguistics and all of the word salads don't matter at the end of the day. You can't demonstrate the actual relationship that you have with a God that you have with me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's not word salads. That's a little bit offensive. It's they're actual logical deductions, and that's how we live our life every day. And for you to say that I don't have a relationship with God, I mean, there's just no.
No, I didn't say no. I didn't say that.
Did I have a friendship, or relationship, or talk to God, or this?
No. I said you can't demonstrate it the way you can demonstrate our relationship.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I can't. No, I can't. And there's a lot.
That's all I said. That's all I said.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate.
But what about what you said about DNA?
Hold on, let me finish.
Don't let me forget about DNA. Okay. I'm ADHD just like God, so we don't.
Hey, I'm with you.
I'm typing it in DNA. I'm putting it in a list now so I can remember.
So
I'm helping you out as well.
Thank you.
So when you say demonstrate, here's the thing. I have no problem coming to a conclusion with all of these things. So, I mean, it's going to get to a point where if you just don't accept it, you don't accept it. I can't give you scientific evidence like it seems that you're implying, but yeah.
So you great. I accept what you just said.
Okay.
So then my follow-up question that is, if I don't, and I was a Christian for 30 plus years, if I don't accept that, then Eddie, why do you accept it? That's what I want to know. Why is that evidence or lack of evidence from my perspective? Why does that convince you? Why are you convinced that God is real?
Well, it's not just all of that. I mean, I have, like I've said before on here, I have a confidence, that God is real, that I can explain. I can't explain it with tangible evidence. It's, like I said, I believe it's more plausible that God exists, but I have a very strong confidence that God does. I can't make you see that. I can't make you understand that. And I can't explain it myself.
But hold on. And because I don't want to go down that trail. Like I know what you're saying, and I know where you're going, but what I'm trying to get to is, what is it that convinces Eddie that God exists? Because I'm not convinced. I want to know what it is that convinces you that God exists.
And I would go back to all of these things that seem to point to something being out there that we can't see physically with our eyes. How we have objective morality, we have mathematics and logic, all these universal abstracts that transcends individual human minds. So all of these questions that can't be answered, the abstract things by science, leads me to believe there is something else that provides a foundation for all of these things. So that's why I believe that there is something that grounds all of these universal things that we see in life that we can't explain with science or by any other method.
Okay. And I'll ask this, and I know Jeff wanted to ask a couple questions.
About what?
About DNA and
yeah. DNA.
But what I heard there, Eddie, is there's all these abstract things, and because we can't, because we don't have a formidable or an efficient explanation of what it is, then we deposit God. We put God in there as the explanation because we don't know how to explain all of the other things that are working in that situation. Is that correct?
Well, God would explain all of those things. So it's a hypothesis that all of these facts about life
So,
seem
so
to
is that not a God of the gaps?
No, it's not.
Well, how not?
Well, because the God of the gaps would be we don't know why in quantum level that particles pop in and out of existence, and therefore God makes it pop in and out of existence. No, this is called inference. It's a inductive reasoning. We look, if all swans that we see are white, then we're fair to conclude that black swans don't exist, right? So if we see all of these abstract universals that transcends each individual, and we have a hypothesis that can explain all of this, then we have an inference from the body of evidence in our reality that there is something that will explain all of this.
No. Anytime we go from we have this and we don't know how to explain this and we can't wrap our minds around it, and then we deposit a God, that's a God of the gaps.
No, it's not. It's an inference. It's literally an inference.
The same thing then.
No, it's
God
not.
of the inference.
No,
Because if you say that, I could turn around and just say you're using naturalism of the gaps.
I'm saying I don't know.
Naturalism.
I'm saying I don't know.
well, no, hold on, and I don't want to turn into a shit show. Like I said, I want to be respectful, but I also want to make sure we're all being honest in the conversation, because none of us get to say it's this, and if we can't explain it, then therefore this, whether it's God or science or anything. Because,
But who makes that rule?
What's that?
We use inference every day. Who makes that rule that you stated?
No. It's not an inference rule. We don't get to say we have a God claim, right? So there's a Christian God claim. And we have existence, we have humanity, and whatever else you want to pile on top of that. And because we can't explain how it came to be or how it came to existence, we just deposit a God. That is God of the gaps. Because yeah, it is.
No, it's not. It's not God of the gaps. It really isn't. It's making so let me ask you this, Oz, to kind of help this go. If we have a hypothesis for A, B, C, D, G, and E, and it accounts for all of these all of these facts, why should we not use the hypothesis?
Well, if the hypothesis is something like an all-knowing, if I can use your same hypothesis to prove another outcome, then it's not a good hypothesis.
Okay. All right.
So if I were to say, look at all this evidence, therefore I'm God, or therefore unicorns created everything.
We can use any hypothesis but a God.
It can be used for other things. It doesn't get us to a knowledge.
Give me a hypothesis that accounts for why there is something rather than nothing, why we have universal abstracts, why there appears to be design, why the universe is fine-tuned. What's your alternate hypothesis?
Sure. Unicorns did it.
Then we're just squabbling over the name. You call it unicorns, I call it God.
Right. It doesn't get us anywhere. We don't know.
It's a semantic argument. It doesn't change.
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know if those laws have always been here. Maybe they're eternal.
They're not, but
So I looked it up. God of the gaps, or the divine fallacy, is a logical fallacy that occurs when believers invoke God did it, or a variant of that, in order to account for a supernatural phenomenon that science can't explain.
Which has been a retreating.
First of all, it's not even agreed that it's a real fallacy. Second of all, if I was giving a deductive argument and you invoke that fallacy, then it would be a fallacy on that deductive argument. I said we get to God by inference.
Okay, Eddie. So let's rewind. Everybody stay cool. The fact.
How can you not look cool?
The fact
when you're wearing a Star Wars T-shirt.
The fact that it is.
In between
it or could be a fallacy absolutely points to the fact that it's not reliable.
That's not be a fallacy.
It could be the same argument can be used for no God.
I'm just using common sense.
No.
I know it's not common practice, but I'm just using common sense.
But just because somebody says it's a fallacy doesn't mean it's actual fallacy.
Well,
And
no
then
shit.
you have you have fallacies that affect validity, and you have fallacies that affect soundness. So it's not a fallacy that would affect the validity of it. It would be one that affected the soundness of the argument. And on that terms, I could use like the taxi cab fallacy really isn't a fallacy that
I think it's going to be a problem for Oz or I to accept it. If
Eddie,
it's just a God.
Here's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I'm gonna run a poll. I'm gonna run a poll and see if that part of, not all of it, but that part of your argument is God of the gaps. And we'll just do a poll and see what the popular debate. And if I'm wrong, I will go in front of everybody and say I'm wrong. Period. But anytime you take in this particular conversation, when you say we can't define this, or we can't wrap our mind around it, or we can't give an explanation to it, and we deposited God, that is God of the gaps. That's what it is. But
yeah, you can call it what it is, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily true, though.
well, and that's exactly how I feel about the God claim, and that's where I'm trying to get to the bottom of the God claim. But Jeff, real quick, and we can take it. This will give us a breather here for a second. Jeff, you talk about DNA.
Well, what did you say about DNA? Something about
The amount of information contained in the DNA.
So are you saying that we're not going to be able to figure out DNA because it's too complicated?
No, I did not say that.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what that means. Like, what is the DNA being complicated? Does that prove it? Like, how does that add to the God argument?
Because the amount of information that is available, it's implausible to think that that is something that would happen just by evolution alone, because it is literally an astronomical amount of information of code that is found in the DNA.
So, but if it's an astronomical amount of code and it couldn't have happened by chance in your opinion, then why does the DNA evidence suggest evolution? Like the complexity of DNA, right? And the fact that we understand DNA, it's not that complicated. We're able to edit DNA now. We're able to gene modify. So I think it's just like any other argument that maybe 1,000 years ago we would have said, well, earthquakes are, it's obvious evidence of God because who else could move mountains?
It's not the same kind of argument. What I'm
think
saying
it is.
No, it's not, because the enormous amount of coding and information that is in the DNA of being is not something that could even be explained by evolution, because there's no mechanism there that would put this amount of information present in just one being that's alive. I mean, it's like, I think.
Well, you understand though that as we evolve, DNA becomes more complex. It didn't happen. It's not like we were deposited on this planet with a full DNA strand like that.
I agree with that. However,
that's why a lot of it is junk DNA.
However, the age of the Earth does not. That's a hindrance with it, because the amount of time needed for the genetic drift and the amount of information that is there, we need the Earth to be far older than what it is. Like I said, I accept evolution, but not a Lamarckian or neo-Darwinian evolution. There are holes in evolution. We have quite a few holes in evolution. So it's just one of the things that we just can't account for at this point with evolution. But it appears
what can't we account for?
The amount of information and coding in the DNA.
What I don't understand that. So like, because obviously I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but I have heard and read evolutionary biologists that can account for the DNA travel, and they can explain it, how the DNA became more complex, where these things came from. And that's how they figured out, one, how they can trace evolution through DNA, and also being able to learn how to edit DNA and do the things we do with DNA. We have figured it's not that complicated. We figured it out. Like we have gotten there. So I'm just saying that a seemingly complicated subject matter, like the way weather works, to people living 2,000 years ago. If you would have said something about weather work, they would have been like, "There's no way, like it's too complicated." And I just think today we're making the same argument, and 100 years from now, DNA is going to be something that is just universally understood. We'll have editing, we'll have ways to fix diseases. Sickle cell anemia will be eradicated. So things like that.
Right. And absolutely. And I'm saying that if we do find a definitive way, then someone should abandon the idea that it was something that was caused by God, or that a God of the gaps would be if we just posit it in there and we're not willing to take it out. We just stick to that it's God that did it. So absolutely. If we find tomorrow that there's a way we can actually test universal abstracts and we can show where,
what would you say is an example of a universal abstract?
Like logic, math, all of these things.
But math is just a concept that humans create.
No, well, you're
without humans, there is no math.
That is actually a whole area of philosophy on its own. So you can't make the definitive statement like that because right, but because you don't know that it's highly contested where and how math comes.
I mean, this book is highly contested, but I talk about it all day.
Jeff.
I'm just saying, if people didn't exist,
math is.
What do you math? Math's not. It's a human concept.
Yeah, I disagree. It's not a human concept.
So what's another example then?
Logic.
Okay, so the way we think.
The rules that are required for reasoning.
But wouldn't that also be something that humans have developed?
What do you mean by developed? Okay, so let's say if you didn't exist, would logic still exist?
I don't know. I think that humans, the way that we think is innate to human. With no human, there is no human logic.
Would the laws of logic exist if you didn't exist?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so they're not dependent on your mind.
They're not dependent on a single human, no.
Okay, so how is it dependent on humans as a whole? Just because you add more in there, how does it all of a sudden become a thing that...
I don't think we have a universal logic.
You don't think the laws of logic apply universally to everybody?
I don't think that we've agreed that there's a universal logic that applies to everybody.
So if I say that you and I can't come to a rational discussion unless the law of non-contradiction is true, then you would say not to everybody?
I just think in order for us to prove a human concept, we need that human rule. I don't think that it's an innate part of existence. It's not something that if humans didn't exist, I don't think that law would be relevant. It wouldn't exist. It was something that humans have developed in order to make a more structured argument and remove, let's say, issues with the argument. And that is an agreed upon rule, just like traffic rules or whatever. It's a more efficient way to get it done.
You can't have a rational discussion without the laws of logic. It's impossible.
Well, let's think about this. Do your children understand the laws of logic?
It doesn't matter if they understand it, they still have to use it.
How do they use it if they don't know it?
Because they talk to me without contradictions and they identify things. So when I'm talking about the laws of logic, I'm talking about the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity,
sure,
and the law of
but you can have rational conversations with people that are completely unaware of those laws.
Absolutely. And you're making my point for me.
No, I'm just saying that it doesn't.
Admitted it's not something that humans have agreed upon because it can be used by those who haven't agreed upon it.
No, but I'm just saying before. So at some point, it became agreed upon that, hey, if we're having a structured argument, these are things that need to be in play. These are the rules.
But children use it and they don't agree upon it.
How do they use it?
They talk to me in non-contradictions. If they were talking,
have they always talked to you in non-contradictions?
I don't know. Possibly not.
So then they learned it.
How did they learn it?
From you.
So you think I taught my kids the laws of logic?
Yes. Did you teach them English?
It's
you didn't sit them down and give them English class. They learned it. They picked it up from you, from the way that you talk, from the way you argue, from who you are.
So if there's a tribe out there who developed their own language and they abide by the laws of logic to communicate, then
There are tribes that have different laws of logic.
no, there isn't.
Oh, really?
Laws of logic are, you can't have a rational discussion if you talk in contradictions. It's not possible. That's what the laws of logic are for.
I mean, there are tribes out there. There are tribes that don't have direction, like forward, backward, left, right, and they exist.
That doesn't have to do with the laws of logic.
I mean, it seems like a big problem.
Jeff, I'm talking to you. I'm also not talking to you.
You're looking the wrong way.
Jeff, I'm talking to you. I'm
you
also not talking to you.
I'm listening.
You're also Oz at the same time. I mean, that's the thing is it doesn't matter if you agree upon it, know it, or anything like that. Laws of logic have to be applied to conversations to even reason anything. And that's not something we can.
But that's to reason it with a human. It's not reasoning. Like, it's not something that's outside of humans. It's just something that we do. That's like saying that, like, we walk on 2 feet because it's the construct in which we walk.
So this is going to come down to you view the laws of logic as descriptive and not prescriptive.
Correct.
So we're not going to agree on this because you have to prescribe the laws of logic to even come to that statement. So I think it's self-defeating, but we're not going to agree on it.
But DNA is not that complicated that we're not going to figure it out. And in many ways we are. And this year was a really big year for DNA. I'm
glad that you have that confidence.
I do. No, we're doing it. We're solving sickle cell anemia as we speak.
Right.
You have a lady, I forget her name, who has sickle cell anemia. They took her stem cells, gene edited them using
amount of information that's
let me finish. Went in, fixed the DNA so that she would produce the correct red blood cells, and then put them back in her body where they then edited all her other genes.
Right. And that says nothing about how we got that much information coded in the way that it is so that we can be who we are.
If it was done properly, we wouldn't have sickle cell anemia. We wouldn't have all the errors and mess ups in DNA.
Sickle cell anemia is an error?
Yes.
Oh, so you don't know that it protects against malaria then?
We can protect against malaria without the problems of sickle cell anemia.
Really? See, you're making all of these
that's like saying if I don't have legs, I can't trip.
You're making all these broad claims about what we could do.
Are you saying that our DNA is perfect?
No, it's not.
Okay, so we have errors in our DNA, as I just said.
But what we are finding that we've always called junk DNA and errors, we're actually starting to learn that they served purposes.
It's interesting because if we look at DNA and we say this DNA had to be created by something else because it's so complicated, why'd they fuck it up so much? Like, why didn't they give us better DNA then if it was designed?
Hey, Jeff.
I got to
pause. Can I tell you something that's really interesting?
I don't know. Oh, God.
Hi, buddy. Why did Eddie go?
Hey, Mike, you want to talk about CRISPR?
Not particularly. The laws of logic thing was interesting to me.
I'll let you do that.
Going to like school with that is like the last thing I really want to do is talk about it.
Where'd Eddie go?
Huh?
Where's Eddie?
You must have some
I don't know.
His audio's there.
He doesn't want me to make fun of his restaurant.
He had to use the restroom and pour a drink. He'll be right back.
I'm going to use the restroom then.
Great.
Psych.
I was like, well, then I'll meet Mr. Benton here for the first time. Then
I don't get
nice to meet you.
Evidence. I think that DNA is the same evidence for not God as it is God. Like the same thing would happen in a not God world. We would expect to see order. We would expect to see guidance and things like that when it comes to a God's involvement. And that's not what I see. I see chaos. I see things happening at random. I don't see this order.
You see teeth trying to actively kill you.
I see, my body actively trying to kill me.
Yeah.
A lot of these things. So it just doesn't make sense to me if this DNA is so perfect and so complicated and so special, but at the same time, if it gives me a white blood cell that wants to attack my own thyroid for some reason.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's
do you think that the laws of logic are prescriptive, or do you think they're descriptive?
I'm a nominalist, so I think they're descriptive. It's not even like I think, it's that they are descriptive. It really comes down to, like, you have to look, from my perspective, you have to look at it from like two points. So one, you could do it from your epistemic like starting point, which for me is just going to be like my actual existence. You could go with the cogito or self or I or whatever you want to go with to describe it. And I'm clearly not existing as well as existing at the same time. And reality is, as a set of all things, is not existing and not existing at the same time. And so a lot of people ask, well, how do you know that that's the case, right? Well, it's existing, so therefore it's not it's as if, am I dead? I am not dead. I'm alive, and it entails the fact that I am not not existing. And so to me, all that is it's relational behaviors that are informing logic itself. And you had mentioned we don't have an agreement, and we don't. That's why we have people that believe in non-classical logic. That's why we have people that believe in paraconsistent logic and fuzzy logic and these types of things where like it technically isn't agreed upon, right? There are people that take a different formal language of logic. And so but yeah, I would say that it's not prescriptive in any way. At least I don't see how it entails that it's prescriptive, or if it was, how that gets you to a god. I don't get. It's like, even if it was prescriptive, like, though it's just governed in this way, I don't see how that it needs intelligibility of a thinking thing. That part, to me, I need to kind of hear the a priori argument or whatever the evidence is.
I mean, I can see human activity over time and over age, and I can tell you right now that 3-year-olds do not have logical conversations with each other. They learn how to do that over time, and they learn the best ways in which to do that. And then as a human species, we have developed a philosophical playbook, if you will, or a way to handle those situations and a way to argue correctly in order to get to the end result and to prove it better. It's the same thing we do with the best ways to design a car, the best ways to fly an airplane or whatever. We don't necessarily know all the laws in place on how to build an airplane, but we still are able to construct it. So it's not, I just don't think that that's an evidence of an external force giving us these laws.
Yeah. And that's my position as well.
Like math, like the math thing, like without humans to describe math,
sure,
I don't think that there's a concept like math that just exists.
Well, yeah. I mean,
we're using what we see in nature as far as patterns and prescribing that to math.
Oh shit! They brought J Mike on.
Wait, hold on. Be quiet.
Eddie, get your menu. Get your menu out. You muted as Mike. That's funny. Yeah. So, yeah, I would touch upon that, like, at least from the perspective of, like, I don't see how the numbers thing gets you to, like, you're clearly going to be describing objects with it, or even if you look at like mathematical models, right? If we like kind of zoom out, or we really get far out on it, I'm pretty sure we could likely concede that most of these mathematical models could be wrong in some way, or a lot of them could be, right?
Hey, sorry, J Mike, I have to cut you off for this.
Sure, I just want to say
that
just kind of shows it's descriptive in the sense of that it'll just get better and describe the world around us. But yeah,
Oz doesn't like math.
He was like, math? No, fuck that shit.
J Mike is just wrong.
We lost 2 viewers, and he's like, math? No.
Eddie,
No,
will you read me off the specials, please, on the menus?
We have a rock star. We have a rock star coming. Hold on.
So I got TJump over here for dinner, and it looks like he brought an axe of his own, but I happen to have an axe too. I wonder who's going to win this time, TJump.
TJump, how's it going?
Well, I actually wanted to talk about the whole logic descriptive thing. So, Eddie, the
Yes.
fact that logic can be used to describe all language does not mean logic is required for the language. The language doesn't exist because logic exists. The language just describes the usages of language. Kind of like if I say, this is a chair and that is a chair, it doesn't mean that chairness existed before the chairs. Chair is just a label we use to describe an existing thing. So logic is just a label we use to describe already existing things. It didn't exist prior to those things.
Well, I wasn't making that argument. I was talking about in order to have rational conversations, the laws of logic have to be applied.
Well, again, so the laws of logic describe the usages of language. They don't actually, you're not applying the laws of logic. The laws of logic are describing the thing you're doing, which is talking.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
How do you disagree with that?
Because I think that you have to prescribe, you have to use and enact the laws of logic to have a logical conversation, and a rational conversation.
You mean you have to use a sentence structure that can be described by the laws of logic, right?
It has to follow the rules of logic. It has to be non-contradictive. It has to be, you got to have the identity of what you're talking about and not confusing identities with a thing.
Right. So the law of identity has to be able to describe the thing you're saying.
You have to use it in order for you to use language to describe it.
No. So like Just Jeff was saying, a 3-year-old doesn't use the law of logic. A 3-year-old uses language, and then the law of logic can be applied to describe that language.
Right. So as well versed as you are in philosophy, if I believe it's prescriptive and you believe it's descriptive, we're just not going to agree on it.
Well, no, I mean, I just proved you false. That's kind of the problem.
No, you didn't prove anything false. You asserted it. You asserted it. You didn't prove anything.
Yes. So a 3-year-old.
No, matter of fact, you can't even tell me that.
Eddie.
You can't even tell me that that we can have a rational conversation without employing the laws of logic.
Eddie, as I just demonstrated, and Jeff just demonstrated, a 3-year-old does not employ the laws of logic. They employ language. And that language is described by the laws of logic, just like it's described by English and predicates and nouns and adjectives and adverbs. They don't know what any of those things are. That doesn't mean that they're like employing the laws of English by saying they're using adverbs and verbs. They don't know what those are, but they can be described with those things. Therefore, they are speaking English.
Right. So you think someone has to be consciously employing it for it to be prescriptive?
For it to be employed, someone has to be consciously employing it, yes. But they can say something that follows the rules without realizing it just fine.
It doesn't matter if someone's conscious of it or not. They're still using the laws of logic.
Wait. Go try to think through that for a minute. So they're not realizing it. How are they using the laws of logic without realizing it?
When you talk about something, people don't talk in contradictions. They don't talk in.
Okay, but that's not what I asked. So say someone says a sentence, the sky is blue. How are they using the laws of logic?
By first of all, identifying the sky, identifying blue. They're not conflating it with other colors. And
how do you identify the sky with logic? How is identifying the sky logic? How can you use logic to identify the sky?
They're saying that the sky is the sky and not the sky and the ground. It's just like I don't have to consciously know the law of gravity to be subjected to the law of gravity. So
right. So that's an external thing to you. Gravity exists outside of you, and it forces you to do something. Logic does not do that. So you know the distinction between analytic and synthetic.
Yes.
A priori and a posteriori.
Yes.
So logic is purely analytic. It's shit in our heads, nothing else. Things true by definition. So you can't use things true by definition to identify anything in the world because the world isn't true by definition. So you can't use logic to identify the sky. You have to use your senses, and then you describe that with a sentence. You say, that is the sky. And that sentence can be described using logic. You can say, you can describe it using English. You can identify the predicate and the noun and the verb and the subject. But that doesn't mean that the person is employing English. They're just employing words that they've learned, which is then described by English. To employ logic would mean you'd have to actually recognize the logical form and then use that logical form in the structure of an argument. You're not employing logic just by saying words. That's not how it works. Logic is a system that we use to describe language. It doesn't exist in language if you don't know logic.
So you're equivocating on logic. I'm talking specifically the three laws of logic, not a logical structure like a deductive syllogism or whether it's inductive or modus ponens or whatever it is. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about we have to use the three laws of logic to have a coherent conversation.
No, you have to use a sentence that can be described by the three laws of logic to have a coherent sentence. To use the laws of logic, you would actually need to list the laws of logic and apply them in an argument. If you're not listing them, you're not using them. You're using a sentence that can be described by them.
Yeah, no, that's disagree. It's you. If you are talking to me and you're not talking in contradictions or the law, you're violating the law of identity or excluded middle. You to have a coherent conversation, you must employ those laws, whether you're conscious of it or not, or you just have an irrational, incoherent conversation.
So again, you weren't listening to what I was saying. So
yes,
in order to employ a law of logic, you have to literally state the law of logic.
No, you don't. No, you to use the law of logic. I didn't say employ. I said use the laws of logic.
And in order to use the laws of logic, you have to actually state the laws of logic in an argument form. Just saying a sentence that can be described by the laws of logic is not using the logic. The logic is not a thing that just applies to all sentences.
You can assert what you want. It doesn't make it true.
What's the fact? This is universally accepted in philosophy.
No, it's not universal. You try to use that all the time. No, it's not.
Your attempt to defend the prescriptivist decision is failed. That's completely wrong. So what you got is completely wrong.
Yeah.
I know. I just explained to you why.
Because TJump said so.
Well, no, I explained to you why first.
No, you didn't explain. You made assertions. You didn't explain anything.
Right.
We're literally on two different sides of the fence.
Eddie, you're not saying anything. You're just deflecting. So again, I'll explain it to you again. A sentence, "The sky is blue," does not employ the laws of logic. It can be described by the laws of logic, but nowhere in those sentences will you discover the laws of logic. Is there a
contradiction in them?
No.
Is the law of identity being violated?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Which means those laws can describe the sentence. That's how that works.
Thank you.
Yeah, I proved you wrong. It's that simple.
Sure did. Thank you.
Yes, I did. Yeah, you're welcome. Just like on brute contingency, you didn't even know what it was, and it just proved your entire argument.
Because I didn't know immediately what.
Oh, no. Brute contingencies themselves disprove your argument. Because
well, if you're going to go to personal attacks, I'm sure you don't want to go there, Tom.
What? Which was that a personal attack? Also, your hair is ugly.
Yeah. Me not knowing something because I didn't shoot it off the top of my head. I was honest about it. I said off the top of my head right now. No, I don't.
No, hold on, everybody, hold on. There were no personal attacks, and even the "I love your hair" thing.
Yeah, because my debate has nothing to do with this, and he brought that up as an attack.
Eddie.
Oz, I'm not going to let him get away with that, man.
No, Eddie, you know what we do here. I'm not going to let somebody just run away with shit. I don't care what their name is. I'm not going to run away with anything. Even he said, I love the way your hair looks. Like that was like him trying to tell you, like, I'm like, we can have this conversation and still have fun. Like, obviously you and I don't have hair on our head. There's no, there's nothing to be said about that. But these are conversations. Let's not make it a ugly emotional thing. That's the whole point. That was, and I said that from the get-go. So,
can I ask you a question of TJump and J Mike? Is there a logical? Is there a statement that follows the rules of logic perfectly that results in something that's not true?
Yeah, that's called a valid but unsound argument.
Can you give an example?
Cats are dogs, dogs are chickens, therefore cats are chickens.
Oh, that was really fast.
So that follows all the rules of logic. It's standard modus ponens. Or
So then we would have to say then that the laws of logic by themselves cannot get us to truth. They need something else.
right. That's
Nobody made that claim.
the
I'm
distinction.
not making a claim against you, Eddie. I'm just trying to figure out stuff for my own.
Yeah. So what I asked Eddie about earlier was if he knew about the analytic and synthetic distinction and the a priori, a posteriori distinction. Those two things are things true by definition, like laws of logic, A equals A is not A. And then things true that are not true by definition, things are true about reality. So like the sky is blue. That's not true by definition. Nowhere in the definition of sky does it say it is blue. It's different colors in different solar systems. So you have the things that you can know purely by thinking about it because they're definitionally true. Bachelors are unmarried. The analytic and the a priori knowledge. And then you have the things that are true about the world, which are a posteriori synthetic knowledge. And no amount of pure logic can tell you anything about the external world other than it is itself. That's all you can get from logic. So logic tells you nothing about reality at all, essentially.
Sure.
Oh,
Okay.
so is that true by logic?
Is the analytic synthetic distinction true by logic?
Is that true by logic?
I'm not sure what you're asking here. Is the analytic synthetic distinction true by logic? Is that what you're saying?
But you can't get to know things about the external world with pure reason or logic.
Yeah, it's because of the analytic synthetic distinction and the a priori, a posteriori distinction, which you said you knew about.
Yes, yeah, I know about them. But how did you come to that conclusion so definitively without using reason and logic?
I don't understand what you're saying. Like you can't get from pure logic a priori things to an apple. Like there's no combination of any logical system ever that can ever get you to apples exist. It's logically impossible to do that. I don't.
Okay.
Do you think you can use formal logic to get to apples exist?
Depends on what you mean by exist.
So formal logic is in like just the laws of logic, law of identity, law of non-contradiction, law of excluded middle. None of those contain nouns. Like there's no objects in any formal logic, right? They're letters. There's A equals B, B equals C, therefore C equals A, right? There's not like when you're looking at propositional logic, they don't say the object. It doesn't exist in the laws of logic, right?
Sure.
So the reason for that is because a priori and analytic claims don't tell you anything about objects. They don't tell you anything about what exists. They only tell you about relations. So you can't use pure relations to get to an object. So nothing about, you can't use the laws of logic to get to an apple or a tree or an object in the reality because just the relations don't tell you anything about what exists. It's like just if A is B and if B is C, then A is C, but it doesn't tell you anything about what A, B, or C are. You have no idea what those are. That's why you can use the examples like if a dog is a cat and the cat is a chicken, therefore a dog is a chicken. And so just the analytic things, just the structure of the argument, the logic itself tells you nothing about reality. You need another thing there.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But why then? Because I get into these arguments quite frequently, or someone will send me a message and be like, "Hey, I can prove God," or I'm sure you get the same messages like, "Hey, I have evidence."
They say that,
and then they jump into some sort of philosophical argument in order to prove the existence of their God. Why do you think that that's such a common argument that they take or path that they take to prove a God claim?
Because argumentation is a valid form of evidence. It does work, but it's like that famous quote from Carl Sagan, you need evidence proportional to the claim. So for example, if I said, lots and lots of people believe that the pyramids are there because we've seen them, like that's pretty good evidence. And you can use an argument about how many people have seen it and the things we've experienced around it and the pictures and things as a way to conclude that they are real. But you can't do the same thing for unicorns. And the reason for that is that arguments only work as a supplementative form of evidence in addition to empirical evidence. They don't work on their own. You can't just use valid structure to define anything into existence. That's one of the main critiques of Thomism and other apologist arguments. So just arguments on their own are nothing but a way to come to a hypothesis. And then you need some external way to verify that hypothesis conforms to reality to make it reasonable. The arguments on their own are nothing without some kind of external way to show they correspond to reality. for the reason I just mentioned, that just the logical structure tells you nothing about what actually exists.
Because I just see, like, a lot of times I think they run a script, I'm sure that they have this thing or the whatever, and they get to the end of it. And if you agree to all the premises, you believe in God now. Like, that's kind of the way I think they see it going, but it doesn't ever make any impact in my, swaying me in that, because I get the structure of the argument. I get the importance of the philosophy, but by itself, it's not enough to prove such a claim.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the main problem with most apologetics arguments. Like their most prolific example of abductive reasoning is the best example of this. Abductive reasoning is literally an affirming the consequent fallacy. It has the exact same logical form as demonstrated by the person who introduced it to logic, Charles S. Peirce. So he showed that this is literally an affirming the consequent fallacy, and it cannot be used as a way to justify a conclusion. So even if you think, well, the best explanation I can come up with is X, that is not evidence. That's evidence of nothing. That's a hypothesis. And then you need some way to test that against new data to show that that hypothesis is real and not just something you've imagined up in your head. And so that's the part the apologists don't understand. They think that just the argumentation, just the logical argument counts as evidence in and of itself of a justifiable conclusion about reality, when really all it does is it counts as evidence for a hypothesis. There's a hypothesis, and you can say this is a better hypothesis than round squares because it has more arguments than round squares do. But it tells us nothing about whether or not this hypothesis corresponds to reality. So it's not actually evidence it's true.
Do you think you can use that? Like, do you think that you could use philosophy or a philosophical argument simply to use as a sifter to maybe shake out really bad arguments and then investigate the ones that need to be investigated further?
Absolutely. So you can definitely use argumentation to come up with better hypotheses. Like this hypothesis is simpler. Let's test this one. This hypothesis doesn't have any logical contradictions. This one's probably better. You can definitely do that as a way to filter out hypotheses. But even when you do that, you can get the answer wrong. So the less simple hypothesis is often correct, and the one that has seeming contradictions can also be correct. So the logical structure of the argument is just irrelevant. Like, for example, one of the biggest examples throughout history was Einstein's special and general relativity.
Sure.
Many of the philosophers at his time period said it's impossible. Time isn't a physical concept. It can't possibly bend. That's a logical contradiction. His argument violates the law of non-contradiction. Therefore, it's impossible. We can just do away with it. Yet he made testable predictions. They turned out to be correct. So all of the philosophers who were using those philosophical arguments were just wrong. Like, no one cares what they had to say. The physicists are like, testable predictions. He's right. I don't really care what you philosophers have to say. Your arguments do not matter at all. Empirical evidence trumps you at every stage.
Sure. I feel smarter now. J Mike, what are you doing? And Benton, you guys are being quiet.
I'm trying to get these. I'm listening, but I'm trying to get these guitar lessons for knowledge exchange here. So it'd be.
Okay.
Do you live in GA or do you flying down there?
No, I live like an hour away from Jeff.
He lives in my basement.
That's an hour. You have a very deep basement.
No. There's a timed lock. Like at a store where you go, like the safe is not accessible. It's kind of that kind of thing. I just want to make sure he doesn't get out.
I'm flying down.
I'm flying down. From Steve. Steve gave you these techniques.
Yeah, he taught me. That way he can ring a bell when he wants to come out, and then within an hour I can come and let him out.
I'm flying down.
Ooh. Nice.
Yeah, we'll all be there. I don't know why you picked Macon.
I didn't pick it. I'm being paid to do this.
Because it rhymes with bacon.
Yep. Why is your background so red, Oz? What happened? Why?
I'm the devil.
It's like you're all color coded. You got the red, the blue, the purple, the white. You're the Power Rangers.
Who's purple?
You're purple. Look behind you. Look at the screen. You're purple.
Did you define that with the laws of logic?
I did. Pre-exist the universe.
Well, I'm going to change the color. I don't like being purple.
Yeah, when I went to Jeff's house, man, he blew my mind. He showed me some really fucking weird ass Michael Cera movie, which was really fucking weird in itself. But it went to this one scene where it was like panning from a hospital to something else, but it was like a white screen to a more of a red screen. He's got those lights in the back. It blew my fucking mind because it would switch the colors while the scene was going like flawlessly, like no latency. And so that was like one of the coolest things I've experienced. I guess I'm just broke.
But have you found any truth to that Michael Cera video that I showed you? Did you intellectually?
I don't know what to think about.
Hold on. Y'all can chop it up for a minute. But I was just saying, anybody has any questions for anybody on the panel right now, put in the chat. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna wrap it up because we've been on here. Well, we had the debate earlier. Now we're at an hour and a half. So if you have questions for Eddie and Jim, the drunken Christian, he ain't got to say shit the entire night. But if you want to ask him about cigars or whiskey, whatever, I'm sure he'll talk to you. TJump, J Mike, just Jeff. If you have questions for me, good luck. But if you have questions for any of us, hit it up now. But I just want to say, Catholic traditionalists, go on somewhere else. Just go on somewhere. Just go on somewhere else. Nobody cares about you or Darth.
Yeah,
nobody cares about you or Darth or Batman around here. So,
well, he came in and he was like, "You should see this 18-year-old that destroyed TJump or whatever." And I'm like, I mean, do you not realize how much of a chode you look like? And you come into somewhere and that's what you have to offer. Like, no argument, just check out this Discord video. I'm like,
that's what I'm saying. Don't give it no more energy than that. That's all he needs to say. You got to come in here acting like a child, like going somewhere else.
I got
to keep going.
I just finished off my bottle, and since we're ending the stream, I can't transition, or there's no need to transition upstairs.
I feel like a nerd. I don't really have a drink or drink much, but
now depending on how long we're gonna go, I have to shift over to my pipe.
I'm stuck with wine.
Oh God!
I drink all of my beer. All I got is wine.
You're gonna feel sick tomorrow.
No, because I don't think I'm gonna drink very much of this.
Go try mulling it, or not that. I don't know what wine you're drinking, but try mulling a wine and making glue vine. Oh man, that would knock your ass off.
Just take a bunch of sugar, or the sugar into the wine, and it tastes better.
Well, it's not just sugar. I mean, you don't have to do it by adding more sugar. You can do it by adding cinnamon and oranges and a few other things, but just essentially heating up the wine is drinking hot wine is all this.
Box wine is the best.
You're a rubber mist guy, aren't you?
Somebody wants to know if we knew each other before TikTok.
I like port because it gets the job done. I don't have to drink that much.
Did any of us know each other before TikTok?
No.
I did not. I didn't know Jeff. You
don't start doing Q&A yet?
I just happened to find out.
You always lose these questions. You said that people can ask questions. I'm just going to do it right now while we're in a panel.
No, you know what?
Don't do it.
I'm going to take Jeff off.
No. I definitely felt like the dumb guy.
What was his little Christian boy's name? Logan or something like that?
Brad.
Let me say real quick. What's up, Christian Watkins?
Yeah, CJ Dub. All right, since Jeff wants to just like try to take over shit,
comments.
He wants to try to take over shit. For Eddie, if there is a causation for reality, is there more value in stopping analyzation through answering God, or is there more value in accepting that we simply don't have an answer yet?
Oh, I'm just an inquisitive person. So when people say, I don't know, I don't, fault them for saying, I don't know. I just want to, if there is a hypothesis that can account for, a lot of things that people say, I don't know to, I don't see a problem with going with that hypothesis.
I mean, that's exactly the problem that previous human civilizations have had. They all thought they had an answer to that question.
Yeah, but it doesn't follow that this hypothesis is false because others have faulted.
No, I'm saying that by asserting the best hypothesis.
Will you guys super chat so I can shut Jeff up?
Because we're asserting the best hypothesis other than seeking the answer until we have. I mean, if we only have two options to choose from and they're both shitty, we should take neither.
A hypothesis is trying to find the answer.
Well, Jeff is correct. You can make up infinitely many hypotheses to explain all of the data. The fact that you can make up a hypothesis to explain the data isn't evidence.
Evident? No, I didn't say
Do you know
that.
how? Do you know how airplanes?
I said it's
work?
a hypothesis to explain that there is a hypothesis that can explain this.
Do you know the
body
science
fact.
behind why gravity works? Like how gravity works?
Does anybody?
No, we don't. So therefore, unicorns do it. That's the best hypothesis I presented to you. Therefore, you
But
must
that
take
only
it.
explains one fact. Where are the rest of the facts that would support?
Well, it doesn't
All right.
matter how many other things it could explain. Like Jeff's point is correct. I could explain all facts, all unknowns with unicorns. That doesn't mean that unicorns are good or that we should
No, it
investigate
just
them.
means that you're calling God unicorns.
No, I can say that there's an unconscious thing that solves everything, therefore it can't be God. And so there's multiple hypotheses that can explain literally everything. It isn't evidence, just that
Right.
you
So
can
what
explain
happens?
things.
So what happens with Occam's razor when you start multiplying hypotheses?
Well, we cut out God for that exact reason. God is less simple than a non-God.
No, it's less simple because you don't believe there's anything more than the physical. So obviously, it's less simple.
Wait. So remember, Occam's razor is don't posit more entities than necessary.
Right.
So if we have the physical and then we posit an extra entity like the non-physical, that's an extra entity we don't need, and so that would be reduced from Occam's razor.
Yeah, and you're just
rid of that.
circular reasoning because you think only the physical exists.
No. Remember, Occam's razor is posit the least entities necessary, so we can
Right.
We don't
counts for all the facts.
we don't need to say what does or doesn't exist. One entity, the material world, is simpler than two entities, the material plus something else.
So the material world answers all of those questions. Then
It can, yes,
it can, it does, or it can.
it can. Like there could be a non-physical. I have no problem with that. There's just no evidence of it.
And what evidence do you have that that the physical world will answer all of these things?
It's always answered them every time in the past so far with 100% success.
Okay. And are you aware of the problem of induction?
Yes, but many times correct is better than 0 times correct. So the problem of induction means we're still better than yours because yours has 0 evidence. Ours has lots of evidence.
Zero evidence? Is that what you said?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, there is 0 evidence for the supernatural of any kind in any field, which is why the consensus in every field says there isn't any.
Okay.
All right. Well, this is what I'll assert real quick, and I hate to even put it on the screen to give it play. And nobody comment. Nobody comment. I got this one.
Mute Oz.
No, not on this one. Not on this one, Jake Mike.
No
Not on
deduction required.
Here's a question for you atheists. From an atheistic worldview, what do you know 100% for a fact to be true, and what is your justification for it? Here's what I know to be true. You need to get the fuck out of the chat. That's what I know to be true. Peace out.
But don't be feeding the trolls.
Such an easy question too. I think, therefore I am. I exist. I know that with
Yeah, I was gonna say existence is pretty certain. You don't have.
I know with 100% certainty there's a difference between
And I knew in TJump and J-Mac, I knew that's exactly where you guys were going to go. But it was like, no, just get the hell out of the chat. Like, go.
I'm gonna kind of guess the response. It'll go into this kind of claiming of like the metaphysical baggage, and I think would probably answer the same, that it's not really going to matter because like you say, if you posit like Descartes' demon, for example, well then we're just the extension of its quality experience.
Blah 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 blah.
So I would just go ahead and
term that Oz doesn't understand.
And I'll answer it before it comes. So
I mean, and you shouldn't kick him out because he's giving you free points for the YouTube algorithm. Like the more comments you get, the better your YouTube stuff
Yep.
does.
Oh, I'm not kicking him out. He can keep commenting. I'm just saying you're not like, we're not going to bring you on screen. Like you can keep talking.
Why not?
Absolutely.
why not?
Why wouldn't we bring him on screen?
Yeah, why wouldn't we do that?
Well, because he doesn't come on screen. We already tried.
Is it like that other dude that goes in the comments and just
Yeah,
says,
he's just the one who gets in the comments and talks shit. So he doesn't come on.
That's a good thing. Like the comments
Okay,
are where you get the YouTube
Now I want to
stuff.
make a quick distinction between other trolls and myself. These people go into comments and then run away. Right? I'm here.
All right, hold on. All right, I got a real question now. Eddie, this is for you.
All right.
Eddie, how do you get from a God to the Christian God?
It's a great question.
How long do we have?
As much time as you have, as much you need. You want to be quiet, you go ahead. I'm gonna
Jesus rose from the dead. That's how.
Real fast, Eddie, when you said, and I try to be quiet, but when you say like, how long do I have? that strikes me right away, because I'm just like, I don't think there's anything I believe that really takes that long for me to kind of get to explain why I believe.
Aren't you in school, college?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's things I'm learning that will take,
Is there
more time to
anything
learn. But the
other-
things that I know to be true, or at least, from my, worldview, what knowledge means, I don't see I don't see how that takes a while. If you like, when you pause, I know you could be just joking, but that always is a weird response when I hear that it's like, how long do you have? It's like, why is it that hard?
Well,
Okay, so let me ask you again, Eddie. How do you get from a God to the Christian God?
One, I'm convinced by Christ and the evidence for the historicity and the resurrection, and the biblical God seems to explain to me the reality of, better than other gods, the things that the universal abstracts I was talking about, things like that, with God being omnibenevolent, benevolent, and omniscient, and all these things. It seems to comport to reality to me more than other gods.
The Christian God does. The narrative is interesting. It's much more, in my opinion, it's much more interesting than the other ones.
What?
I've spent a lot more time in the other ones as well.
I disagree. I think the Norse gods and the Roman gods are so much more interesting. Like the Christian gods are boring as hell.
Yeah,
How so?
The epics of Odin and how he conquered the world and how he killed the Titans, and
They're not making movies about Jesus.
that's right. Well, they are making movies about Jesus. And
They are.
they're
They
actually
did. Yeah, they
top,
did.
The top
In
box
fairness.
office selling movies are like most. I think
They're not making blockbuster movies about Jesus
Passion
Yeah.
of the Christ was a huge blockbuster.
recently
I've never understood
Passion of the Christ
under the
2,
Marvel umbrella.
Passion of the Christ 2 is coming out. It's
Jim, I've never really understood the appeal to this idea, and I know you'll disagree with me, but
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
I've never understood this idea because I've never been religious. So it's always been weird to me that the story ultimately is this God could have made something else, decides to kind of create this fall that is our fault, and people after it that didn't even sign up for life. Like, you didn't have a saying in life. I didn't have a saying in life. It's like, we are subject to this thing the God could ultimately change, right? It has the ability. It's serving tennis. We are not, we're kind of waiting for the serve. And so it's weird for me that we are putting so much blame for him to just go, hold on, let me double the fuck down on this and show you how much it's your fault by sending myself to kill myself. Like, to literally on a suicide mission to just say this appeases it. It's like, it's just doubling down on something that was already kind of douchey to me. And so it's never like, the story has always been, and someone could say I'm biased, but it's like, it's always seemed like that's just a bad story to me. It's like not a good.
And real quick, because I do always want to be transparent, honest. So the Catholic traditionalist, whatever, he called us out and said, no, actually, I did go into. Well, I'll just put it up. Fuck it. Said he went to his YouTube stream, meaning TJump, because that's what he's talking about, and obliterated the atheists that night, which I'm sure they did.
Why are we giving credence?
No. I had to do it on purpose because he's trying to call me out for being dishonest.
You are dishonest.
So
You don't call anyone out for being dishonest.
thanks for helping the cause, Jeff. But I actually listened to what he's talking about with TJump, and TJump actually took all of them to the woodshed. But we have twice invited Catholic traditionalists onto our live shows, and he always ducked us.
If they don't show up, then they're just a crappy troll.
Yeah, you if you duck us, that's on you. That's not on us.
But J-Mike is the like, when you look at the story, and I know that Oz has his thing with the story where he doesn't like, the Christian story. But for me, like, going back and rereading the Bible now as an atheist for the first time and reading some of the parts that don't really make sense, and there's all kinds of other stuff in there, but I don't understand why, if Jesus was always there, if Jesus was always part of the plan, what was the point of the flood? Like, if those people were going to be redeemed anyway at Jesus' sacrificial part of the story, then
Well, that's because it belonged to a different religion, Jeff.
Well, I understand that, but is Jesus plan B? Like, okay, we tried.
No,
and now I got to send Jesus.
As a Christian, can I answer these questions?
Well, you can answer it as Eddie.
Well, I mean, Jim the drunken is a Christian too.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we can tag team a little bit. I know you. So what I would say to that is we understand things in narratives, I think, a lot better in story. And there's a beginning and there's a middle and there's an end to the Bible as well. So like we understand things a little bit better in those contexts. And I know this is where like it can get really dicey very quickly, but generally speaking, we understand stories better. We understand a narrative. We get more from stories than we get from any mathematical formula, I think.
How is that an answer? I don't get it.
So the flood happened, right? So it's part of this narrative. It's part of the narrative of why we are who we are and why God had to come and do what he needed to do.
Are you saying it's a story or is it a literal event?
So I think what he's saying is that God flooding the earth and then sending Jesus made a better story that had more of an impact on the world. Is that about right?
Sort of, kind of, and I'm working through that a little bit.
I mean, I do agree the better story is the one that's going to stick around longer.
I would take a different approach.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I don't deny that the flood narrative was probably a myth that was put in there, an ancient myth. I don't really believe that a worldwide flood happened. I don't think that we have to take ancient literature at face value for what it says. They were a storytelling people, so there was lots of different stories to, bring different points. For example, I mean, you can take typological prophecy and look at the flood narrative, look at, Jonah in the well and Isaac being sacrificed. And there are lots of parallels to the life of Christ. So I don't see a reason why we have to take those stories as literal events. I don't think they were meant to be taken, all of them, as literal events.
And that's a problem that I struggle with often, is this idea that the literal, like balancing the literal and the different events, literal, metaphorical, abstract. There's a lot of issues there, like how far you can parse it.
Doesn't it seem like kind of like a bad method? Like that's and I'm not trying to be like mean. I'm just like, doesn't it seem like the method God chose, if we're doing an internal critique, failed for this reason? Because you and Eddie can't agree. Other Christians can't agree. The geological strata doesn't agree, right? So like, I don't.
Can I do this real quick? Just at this point, it's getting fun. It's just getting fun. Catholic traditionalists, the worldwide flood did happen. No, it's fun. It's fun.
I got a question.
The Catholic Church actually allows for the flood not happening. Literally, Catholic.
It did happen.
He's probably not even a Catholic.
It was Mary. Anyway, did you have a response?
Yeah, I had a question. So if we can say that some parts of the Bible shouldn't be taken literally, can't we just say Genesis 1 isn't supposed to be taken literally, and there wasn't a God who created things? Like, it seems like we could take that as a figurative story also.
I don't take it literally. I take it as just that it's in a mnemonic form for an oral people. If you look at the 6-day creation,
not literal.
Well, and what I mean is, like, we can say there wasn't a God in the first place. That part is the part we don't have to take literally.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could, but then that kind of undercuts the whole rest of the Bible.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the idea. It's like, It seems like if we're taking these stories like the global flood or Adam and Eve not literally, that kind of undercuts pretty much most of the Bible, since it was structured around these stories as being the reason that
would be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's no sense in dismissing all the stories because
the need for Jesus is dependent on Adam and Eve.
What?
The need for Jesus. Because Adam and Eve is how sin entered the world, and that was why we need redemption.
Yeah, but that's going through original sin. That's not all Christians hold. A lot of Christians don't hold to original sin.
Well, then also original sin doesn't mean
Christianity doesn't know what Christianity is.
Well,
and Oz doesn't know how the microphone works.
Well, hold on, if Eddie, if you're saying that not all Christians hold the original sin, aren't you just kind of furthering the point that TJump is making when he says couldn't like anything? Because now we're at this. Like, here's my thing, right? I like to look into it, and it's like if we look at Mark and Matthew, right? I think Mark 6, Matthew 14, and we can see these kind of things within like Herod Antipas being called a king, and then changing that over to tetrarch, and then we can kind of get a consensus on the Markan priority, right? And we can understand Matthew changed this because it was wrong, right? Well, then at what point, what gospel are we taking? What's true? If one gospel is wrong, it seems to me that Joanna and Salome, right? They're obviously not going to the tomb in the same gospels as Mark's, right? Where it just ends and they flee, right? So my thing is like, how do you decipher this as a Christian to take any of it to be reliable when you have to kind of pick and choose because they can't both be true, right?
You don't pick and choose. You approach it with a proper method. You understand what type of genre the book is. Is it a homiletic? Is it meant to be a biography? Is it meant to be this, that, or the other? You have to know something about the culture, the people.
Why wasn't that included in the Bible?
Well, who's got the proper method? The Methodists, the Baptists, the Episcopalians, the Lutherans?
That's what textual criticism is. It's not a denominational thing. That's approaching any ancient literature. You have
but
to.
If that stuff is necessary for the understanding of the Bible, it should be included.
You're gonna let me finish?
Yeah, no, I do want to hear your response.
Yeah, it's there is textual criticism is how we, decipher what may have been added later. What was the original text? Who the author was, the type of book that it was. The Bible is not a book. No, it's a collection of books. What?
Can I say this real quick? Because we have somebody just jumped in real quick before I know it's going to get out, but they've been wanting to get in, and I'm going to take myself out after I say this. And
what is that?
J. Mike and Jeff, they know this about me best. I always try to bring it down to this at the end of the day. Eddie and Jim, the drunken Christian, and Jim, at this point, you may not even know what the fuck I'm talking about at this point. I don't know.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I'm messing right now. But like all of this stuff to me is salad. It's spaghetti. It's what I want to know is what convinces people. Like, why do you believe what you believe?
Yeah, but we're on a path, and we're getting close to that.
But you're not. You're really not.
No. TJump telling
all the things that we're explaining and saying, I just want to know. I just want to know. And
we were getting somewhere very, very good in Eddie's mind. We were getting into that cranium.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna bring Mark Slump on. He's been wanting to jump on. So I'm gonna do a little break here and bring him on because, like I said, he wanted to jump on. But that's my line of questioning.
And a quick caveat: Mark is a young guy, so take it easy.
I think
Mark is a purple M&M apparently. So
I think you guys should replace one of those Tart chairs with like one of these recliners.
But Eddie, you just talked about like forever about the law of non-contradiction, and then J. Mike is showing you contradictions in the story, and then you're saying, well, we have to have all these extra things to now understand it. I just don't understand why.
So if there's a contradiction in two different accounts, what does that do? Is the whole thing wrong?
So if I had a car, let's put it this way. If I had a car accident with J. Mike and TJump saw it, right? And he told you that a red car ran into a blue car and that was the accident. And then someone else comes by and says, no, there were two cars in this accident that hit J. Mike's car. And then someone else says, no, that car went by, they didn't hit. Which story of the three is correct?
Yes, and that is a very good illustration,
especially if those three accounts are in a book that's acclaimed to be cut from a god.
Right. So first of all, you would know it's not collusion because there's three different accounts. Second of all, you can look at the meta facts that are there. You don't have to pay attention to every single detail.
What is a meta fact? I don't know what that is.
they share all three, the facts that all three
But
share.
we're just
Yeah, yeah.
ignoring the other stuff.
Hold on, real fast, because
Yeah,
I got
J-Mike.
to sneak this in. So I got just real fast. This will help me. Do you take Q theory? It's like, do you accept that, or what's your?
Oh, yeah, absolutely possible that there's a Q document. Yeah.
But it's a hypothesis, right? We don't actually have.
Right. Yeah, it's just a hypothesis that they borrow. Others may have borrowed from, or they could have borrowed from Mark. We don't.
What would make more sense is if Luke had a copy of Matthew, or if there's this hypothetical thing that explains the double tradition within Matthew and Luke. What do you which sounds more reasonable and doesn't, you don't have to.
I lean towards there being a Q document that they had possibly borrowed from. But I don't even think I'm going to take a different kind of approach on this. I don't even think the Gospels are the best evidence for Christ. I think Paul is, because it's the earliest writings that we have.
Yeah, okay, but so you would probably not accept your wife, who I assume you trust, telling you that she saw the risen Tupac, right? But you've never met Paul. Why do you trust Paul for who you do not know? You've never met, can't confirm he even existed. Why? Because first off, let me ask you, would you accept if your wife told you she saw the risen Tupac? Would you accept that?
No, and I'd push back about we don't know that Paul ever existed either.
Well, hold on, but you wouldn't accept your wife's.
No,
okay,
I wouldn't.
Why do you accept Paul's testimony for which you've never met?
Because of all the other corroborating accounts. It's not just one account. Paul is.
You just said Paul is the best.
Paul is the best, yes, but he's not the only. It doesn't follow that he's the only because he's the best.
And so,
how many accounts of Tupac do we need?
Yeah, I was just literally just gonna say, how many accounts do we need to get to corroborate to get to you believe your wife's initial claim that Tupac rose?
Well, if Tupac had changed the world in the way that Christ did, and we had so many different accounts of it,
I'd argue Tupac did change the world in a lot of ways in a lot of kids'
yeah,
lives.
but not near to the level that Christ did.
Regardless, but we don't. But that you're begging the. But Eddie, you're begging the question.
No, I'm not begging the question.
You are, because you're assuming all of that from the person at which you're having to understand whether they're credible in the first place. But you're accepting that the whole message is what they're saying.
But wait a minute, Tupac has made as much of a difference as Christ in the same amount of time as Christ did. So I don't know if that's really a good argument.
You can go to all kinds of places in the world. They don't know who Tupac is, and he never seemed to be God.
Remember, Christ had only died. Tupac only died like what, 15 years ago? So 15 years after the death of Christ, he had made less of an impact on the world than Tupac did 15 years after Tupac died.
Okay.
And
so,
Tupac made and also anecdotal, but Tupac made a bigger effect on my life than Jesus did, right? And so I'm a testimony to that.
First, I'm not begging the question because I didn't give you an argument. I made a statement. Second of all, the everything that surrounds Christ, the Old Testament, the Jews, all the copies of the New Testament that we have, all of these different things, extra biblical sources, the way the world was impacted by Christ eventually, all these things.
But didn't you just say those
hold on, Jeff,
stories?
let him finish real fast.
All of the accumulative evidence there, and who Christ claimed to be, and all these things, I think it makes sense that he existed, and the explanatory scope of the resurrection, if he was God or Son of God, then it's, as an explanatory hypothesis, is the best that accounts for all the facts.
How many people do you need to come up to you to tell you to get, or to use the same exact method? Or let's just say your wife wrote you a letter. How many letters are you going to need, right, to corroborate to get to Tupac rose? Because it sounds like to me you're going to ignore the methodology right then and there, but accept something 2,000 years ago for which you're removed from and don't know the people at all. You don't know any of these people. So
are there documents thousands of years before Tupac that's talking about a Messiah that is coming? Is there?
Yes.
Well, first off, I'm going to disagree with you on Isaiah 7:14, right?
I'm not using Isaiah 7:14. There is no question that the Old Testament talks of a Messiah. Now, whether it was Christ is debatable, but there is plenty of messianic prophecies there. And I would even go as far to tell you that you can read through the whole Testament and not get to Christ. However, after the life of Christ, if you look back through the Old Testament, you'll see all the typological prophecy that I was talking about. I don't believe in those, that there were prophecies that specifically, pointed at Christ in the details that he had, because that's the reason that they had no reason, the predispositions that the Jews had not to follow him.
Well,
He wasn't the idea of the Messiah.
It just seems that like I could corroborate other letters and just retrofit post hoc, kind of explain that this data, these letters about Tupac rising is actually goes with this, and that's what kind of validates it, right? You can do that after the fact.
Yeah, we have thousands of years of predictions of a Messiah's coming from Hinduism that we can apply to Tupac. The predictions, forget what they call prophecies from Hinduism, equally apply to Tupac as the prophecies from ancient Judaism apply to Jesus.
Okay. All right. Where's the evidence that Tupac rose? Did he claim to be God? Did he claim to be?
No. We're just going off the anecdotal testimony, right?
No.
That is the evidence.
The anecdotal. It's the background knowledge too. It's not just anecdotal evidence. It's the whole thing.
Which part of that is not anecdotal?
Wait, so draw me a picture here to show me the difference here. So we have testimony from your wife that Tupac existed. We have thousands of years of prophecies that say Tupac is going to rise from the dead and there's going to be a Messiah. Tupac claimed to be God. So all of those are the same. What are we missing? What's the difference between him and Jesus right now?
Well, there's an unbreakable chain of bishops from the Orthodox Church, Catholic Church, all the way back to the apostles. See, it's not just the Bible that we have. We have all of the founding forefathers. Everything goes all the way back to that time. It's not like there's this huge gap. And then all of a sudden, everybody starts being Christian.
I get okay, but real fast, that gap though is like, so you can make this point. You really can do what you want to do. Tupac on his last album, right? Started calling himself Machiavelli, right? And he had all these things that people said. Oh, he died in 6 days. He took, of all these kind of numerology kind of things that people took to say why he's either still alive. But you could apply that after the fact and say, oh, he actually rose from the dead after his death, right? You could do this same exact thing.
So basically what you're saying, we could paint the whole narrative of Jesus and then say Tupac was the son of God. So then you'd have to remove all the sins that Tupac had committed in his life, that he claimed to be God. Then we had all these different sources. Then we had all of these prophecies leading up to it. Once you get all of that stuff together, then I will consider that Tupac rose from the dead.
Okay, I think we have all that. So Tupac didn't sin because he was God, and since he's God, he's the grounds of morality. So nothing Tupac did could actually count as a sin. Like even if he drowned babies, it wouldn't count as a sin because it's the ground of morality.
It's not the claim of Jesus.
But it's the same. It's like 1 Samuel 15:3 when he kills the Amalekites, right? We're gonna say that murdering children is objectively wrong, but it's not in the case of when he does it there. TJump's making the exact same point that if he is God in that claim, it doesn't matter really what he does because he can do that the same way Yahweh in 1 Samuel 15:3 can smite Amalekite children, right?
It's not a sin for God, right?
It's not objective to God. No, it's not. It's objective.
So is it not fair could we not use that same thing? Why couldn't we use it? Like where's the special pleading come in where you can use that or Yahweh's allowed to kind of break that, but we couldn't in our
it's not special pleading because with God being the creator of life, he's not and the source of morality, we're not subject to, he's not subject to the same moral law.
We're agreeing with you. We're saying that, okay, but your God is wrong. Tupac is the real God. So Tupac is really the standard of morality, or he's the son of God. So nothing he did was a sin. So we don't have to eradicate his sins because he never sinned. He is the grounds of morality. So he can't sin. He's not.
He's sinless.
When I said sin, I'm talking about Christ as a human being. Yes, Tupac did sin. There is no evidence that Christ as a human being sinned.
But you're looking at it from your worldview. We're talking about our worldview. We're
then provide evidence that he sinned, and I'll abandon it.
Wait. What? I'm talking about Tupac.
Yeah, we're saying Tupac did not sin, just like Jesus did not sin.
What do you mean?
He is the standard. He cannot sin.
You see, you're confusing the whole. You're conflating two different ideas.
I'm saying Tupac is good the same way you would say Yahweh is good. It's the same argument.
Okay, but Jesus was God incarnate as a man. As a man, he did not sin. Tupac did sin as a man. So
I think you're talking past each other.
I know, but you're taking this outside in your standard, and we're doing an internal critique and trying to compare the two, right?
Let me jump in here.
Not leak into each other's.
Whoa, stop. So Eddie, what's happening right now? So I can try to build the bridge here. Is you're reading a text, and you are reading it as though this person in this text did nothing wrong; they were sinless. What they're saying is, upon their text and what they're given from their worldview, their person did no wrong. So how can yours be different than theirs?
Well, I mean, I can take Tupac's interviews alone and show you that he had sin.
Well, let me clarify here. So
Christ sinned as a man.
So Eddie's making a distinction between Jesus and what Jesus did, and God in the Old Testament, what God in the Old Testament did. So God murdered people in the Old Testament, but Jesus didn't murder people in the New Testament. So Eddie is saying, based off of our standard of morality, Jesus as a human didn't do anything wrong, whereas Tupac did kill people or whatever. I don't know if he actually killed people. But the problem with that is he admitting that his God is now immoral? But God can't do immoral things, right? So even if Jesus killed people personally, that wouldn't be immoral. So how are you saying that Jesus is sinless? Because anything Jesus did wouldn't have been a sin, just like anything God did wouldn't be a sin.
No,
therefore, Tupac, the same thing would apply. Anything Tupac does would also not be a sin, unless you think Jesus killing people would be a sin.
Yeah, that would.
I absolutely think it would, and it would disqualify him as a son of God. Absolutely.
How is that different from God killing people?
Because Jesus as an incarnate man is not God as the omni-God.
But now aren't you just admitting the morality is inherently subjective?
No, it's not.
How is it not? If it's objectively the case, it means it can never not be that. And you have an example of where it is not that. That is objective.
Wait, J-Mac, I want to. So if it wasn't Jesus, if Jesus is a human incarnate, right? So, but if God just himself came down, he could kill people just fine. That wouldn't be a sin, right?
If he's incarnate as a man, well, see, here's the thing: is Jesus as a man did not have the access to all of the omni that God was. Jesus was fully man with a full nature of God. So if Jesus says that I am the Son of God and he goes and murders people, well, that is evidence that he's not the Son of God.
Okay, but my question was, if God, who does have access to all the omnis, comes down in human form with access to all the omnis, he could kill people and it wouldn't be immoral, right?
I don't know how you would have God in a human form with all the omnis.
He just appears in a human form, like the burning bush. He's like a burning bush that's just floating around killing people. That would be fine because he's still the God, right?
If God could come down in his form that he is, or and not as a man who claims to be the Son of God, and he starts killing people, and it was the omni God, then yeah, he has the ability to kill without it being wrong.
That was Tupac.
Okay, well then, okay.
So could I say so?
I'm not.
There could be a distinction between, let's say, a theist were to take a natural law kind of theory. So then he would say, maybe when Jesus came down to earth, he is then susceptible to that natural law, and then under that natural law, he can or cannot commit a sin, and he is perfect under that natural law. Whereas Tupac, he wouldn't be perfect under that natural law. So that could be a route that a theist could go to avoid kind of the Euthyphro dilemma, or saying that no matter what he does, it's going to be.
What do you mean by natural
good.
law?
So things in nature are goal bound kind of thing, which is where we derive obligation sort of thing.
So if God came down as a burning bush, that would, if this natural law thing was true, it would be immoral for him to kill people?
Sure. Like if he is
under
that natural law.
Where did he not do that in 1 Samuel 15:3 when he killed natural babies? Right? Like I don't understand. How are you?
Oh yeah, no. Like I don't take biblical inerrancy.
It's not cherry picking. It's dingleberry picking. To be more accurate.
Sweet. I mean, you don't have to accept
that it's literally true. That not the people didn't just write the story and think God did it, or
Well,
told him to do it.
Well, hold on. I'm trying to make a point to Mark's point about this natural thing, because when you say that, it's like the God itself, from what we're arguing from the first place, is already leaked into that. And so that's, or maybe I have some confusion, but it seems that he's already in this natural realm at which you've kind of set a barrier for, but he's already killed in that. So I got, what's the difference if it's Jesus or God? Because it's already in that same realm of killing people or condoning slavery or drowning babies in Genesis. Like where
Yeah, I don't really take a literal or even a inerrant view of the Bible. Like, but you know.
Well, I don't understand your argument in general. So.
Oh yeah. It would just be if you are within the nature. So natural law would say the nature or physical things are derived. Physical beings have a goal that they that is, you know, fundamental to the nature of the universe, and that's where we derive our obligation. And if something is outside of the universe, he wouldn't be susceptible to that same natural law.
Okay, I could just say Tupac was outside of the universe, and he just showed a vision.
No, but Tupac was, you know, he was a physical being.
Well, I could say he was
like
outside of the universe.
Made
he just showed a vision that looked like a human being.
Well, that would just be kind of how do I say this? It would it's not necessary to posit that he was, you know, an illusion or something like that.
Right. It's also not necessary to posit an ultimate being who's outside of the universe, but that's again not the point. The point here is to say that if God can kill people and it's not immoral, then Tupac can kill people and it's not immoral if he's God.
Well, no, but under Tupac, he's under a certain moral obligation given the universe has a goal.
That doesn't work if God's the basis of morality. But Just Jeff asked a question to Eddie. Are you a Trinitarian? Do you believe God is fully Jesus and Jesus is fully God?
Yes.
Yeah, it's.
Wait a minute.
That does convolute it a little bit, even from my perspective.
That's not. But God, Jesus in his eternal form is part of the Trinity. Yes, absolutely, as a person of the Trinity.
Do you ascribe to like modalism specifically?
No.
So when I say Jesus is fully God, that means he'd have to have all of the access to all the omnis.
No, that doesn't follow.
So he's not fully God. He's partially God.
Fully God. He has fully God nature, fully human nature.
How can he be fully God but not have full access to all the properties of God?
That is an in-house debate that's gone on for a very long time. And I can't do it justice here. It is literally a debate that has gone on for thousands of years.
I mean, God would have choice in this case as well. So, I mean, you can choose how and when you use your powers, or in this case, powers. Just like how and when you present yourself.
Yeah, sure. I can choose to turn my powers off for something, but then I'm not fully God anymore because I've shut myself off from those powers that are mine.
No,
I'm not the full God.
Assumption that he completely shut him off, but he performed miracles. So like if he performed miracles and he had at some level had the power of God, like
right. I'm just going off of what Eddie said. What Eddie said that Jesus doesn't have access to all the omnis.
I'm aware that's kind of where this line of questioning would lead, especially when we started down that path. So. No, it's definitely an in-house debate, and even then, so what I would say is Jesus would have he is God, he is man, he is part of the Trinity, and he has the ability, just like he can choose when and how he wants to use those powers. Like he chose not to go to a village and demonstrate his power. Why? Because there was no faith.
Okay, so from your perspective, Jim, if Jesus drowned millions of babies, would that be immoral? If Jesus personally?
By morality.
Well, I mean, because if we take the Old Testament literally, just for the sake of the argument, God drowned millions of babies in the world flood. That was not immoral because God is the grounds of morality. If Jesus is fully God, then Jesus obviously was the same person who did it. But if Jesus came here on earth and then drowned babies, that also wouldn't have been immoral because he's still the standard, right?
But how would you determine that he was?
Well,
we're granting it for the argument.
At some level.
Do what?
God disciplines himself at some level, right? If we're using the Bible literally, right, and we're listening and we're reading it literally, there's a covenant. He makes covenants throughout the entire Bible. He makes promises. He says things that there will be consequences for them.
He disciplines himself, so it is immoral if he kills people? And he disciplines himself because he did an immoral thing?
He disciplines himself. So Abraham, he makes a covenant with Abraham, right? A covenant says, hey, you will do this if you do these things. Like, I will do this if you do these things, right? Just like with Abraham.
Well, I'm not following. So my original question was, is it immoral for God to drown babies?
But that's see, that depends on what you mean by morality.
I'm asking you.
I'm trying to go into something else.
Yeah, I'm asking you what you mean by morality. In your worldview, is it immoral if God drowns babies?
Is it immoral?
I don't know why this is a difficult.
No, I
like,
would
it
say
should be-
that the omni God, no, drowning babies is not immoral when he's a standard of morality. No.
Whenever I hear this kind of stuff, though, because like these questions are speculative, and we have to kind of listen to Christians talk about the things that they know about the Bible and what they think, it always just strikes me as what I would call Christian fan fiction, because you guys seem to be making it up as we go along.
No,
Whatever
it's different
argument
when
you
you
think
study
you're
it.
trying to go after, but it's not. I'm still talking. We're not trying to fit. We're not trying to catch you in an argument. We're not trying to like find the Christian, thing. We're just literally looking at two different storylines and trying to figure out what the difference is with the Jesus storyline and the Tupac storyline. That's it. We're not trying to disprove the Christian one. I just want to know what is the special ingredient that Jesus has that Tupac doesn't.
I told you that if we had all that stuff that surrounded Jesus for Tupac, then we would definitely consider that he raised.
What stuff?
The scripture prior to him, the
scripture prior to him does exist.
The perfect life, him claiming to be God.
The perfect life one is the one we're trying to discuss. How do you define a perfect life? If you're just defining God as the perfect being, then anything he does is the perfect life, right?
Perfect under the natural law kind of standard, if that's the route you can take.
That didn't make sense, so you can't use that one.
Why not?
It didn't make sense. Like natural law, you're saying the universe gives some kind of morality. The universe itself has the grounds of morality to it, and anything in the universe is subject to this morality. That means that God isn't the grounds of morality, the universe is.
So but he would have set up the universe in such a way, because you can't derive obligation from non-personal beings. So
then the God himself, when he enters the universe, becomes subject to the law, which means he has created a rock so heavy he can't lift it.
He would be subject.
You can never
think about that.
Create a rock so heavy.
I would say his physical form, yes, not as.
Mark said that if God created the universe and anything inside of the universe is going to apply this law to whatever's inside of it, and God enters the universe, then the universe has to be more powerful than the God, so that it can impose this moral law on the God, and that would be like a rock so heavy you can't lift it.
There's still the two different forms of God, I would say, and you could say. It's a good question.
What I was saying was, TJump, is that if Christ as a man did do something, killing people, this, that, or the other, that would eliminate. That's part of the evidence for Christ being the Son of God, is that he lived a sinless life.
Well, how is that? That would be evidence against Jesus, but God drowning babies not evidence against God. If we take the Old Testament literally, if the Old Testament was literally true, would that be evidence that the Christian God was false?
No,
but it would be if Jesus did it.
And as a man, yes.
That's sort of where I was going.
Because as a man, if he is God incarnate as a man, then he's going to do things that are according to the nature of God, the goodwill of God. So as a man, if a man kills or drowns babies, then that would be evidence that he's not from God because he killed the babies. He did something immoral.
He's acting like God.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on this part that somehow Jesus drowning babies would be wrong, but God doing it is totally fine.
Well, because he would be under the natural law.
And they're both the same
Yeah,
person.
but one is under a law and one isn't.
Whoa, they're
right?
not the same person. It's the same substance, not the same person.
My favorite part of the last Marvel movie was when all 5 stones were combined and into a gauntlet.
But weren't we like into the laws of logic earlier? This seems like it inherently defies the law of identity in every way possible.
Can you guys hear me okay?
It is a paradox.
Yeah, yeah, we can see you.
Okay, and you can hear me all right?
Yeah.
No, we can't hear you at all. You're completely muted.
Yeah, we don't know what you're
I
saying.
can't hear you. Sorry.
I just want to say a couple of things. I've been listening to the conversation for a little bit, and I want to throw in my 2 cents. The first thing is that it doesn't make any sense to talk about objective morality and then say that it's okay if God does it, but not for everybody else. That, by definition, makes morality subjective. So you can't have it both ways.
It would mean objective to us, not really.
That, from my perspective, is incoherent. You can't have that. By definition, is not what objective means.
Yeah, so it's okay for Cease to do it, but it's not okay for me to do it. It's basically what you're saying.
Yeah. So I would say eventually you're gonna have to terminate in some sort of subjective mind because we can only derive obligation from personal agents, as far as I know.
Right. So obviously I would disagree with that framework. My perspective on morality is quite different. But
let me give you this real quick, Cease.
Sure.
It's with God being pure act and not potentiality. He is the sustainer of reality, and we participate in his reality. Then God's nature of what he is emanates from God as we participate in that. So when we say objective, we're talking about objective according to human opinion. That's how it's always been used in the objective moral argument. To say that it's objective to God immediately undercuts God being the source of objectivity.
So a few things here. The first thing is that to say objective to human opinion, again, to me seems to be incoherent. If something is objective, it's irrelevant of opinion. It's objective regardless of what people might feel about it. So I don't know what you mean by that. Secondly, the point is that if you're saying that morality arises from God, if you mean commandments, then it's just arbitrary, his whims. If you mean his nature, that God in his nature is reflective of goodness, but then we can just talk about nature. We can just talk about why morality comes from nature without having to make the assumption.
Well, then you have a problem with divine command theory. You don't have a problem exactly with morality being grounded in God. It's just divine.
My problem.
Hold on, I'm gonna jump in here because I want to make sure, because we've been going on for a while and we've not included our audience. So I want to make sure we do this real quick. So Javier had a question for the theist. If everything in the Bible is depending on interpretation from imperfect and fallible humans, how do you corroborate anything in the book, in parentheses, collection of books, just in case?
Well, that assumes that if it's imperfect and fallible, it can't have any truths in it. You can investigate reality and the facts that we know in history and things of that, and come to an idea of what probably happened. So just to throw the whole book out because there may be an inconsistency or something like that just doesn't. I mean, it doesn't follow logically to do that.
I don't think that's what he was saying, was it? It doesn't.
No, I think he's presenting an interpretation problem. So why is it so subject to interpretation when it's written by a
that would be because of the fracturing.
No. I don't think that's what he's. No, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think what he's saying is like you have a clean water, right, God, and you're pouring it through infallible, like dirty humans, right? How it just seems like you have this kind of medium where it's just always going to end up dirty, right? Like, I think what he's trying to say is that, like, how, if we're imperfect or fallible, how are we ever going to have access to that the infallible word, right? Like, we seem to be blocked in that kind of.
Well, one doesn't have to accept infallibility.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
probably
I
a
don't
better
really-
approach. But hey, just to respond to what you said earlier, Eddie, real quick, I have a problem not just with divine command theory, but I have a problem with the entire notion, because I see absolutely no reason to have to assume that morality has to be intrinsic to any metaphysical claim as such. And when you say that, okay, it's not one form of evidence, but it's the totality of all these other arguments. The problem is that when you take each argument on its own, they all have problems from the first to the last. So the totality is still problematic because they're all flawed in some way.
We would have to go through them one by one.
And I look forward to doing that with you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So and my point was, Cease, that one can be a virtue ethicist, one can hold to natural law and all these things. They don't have to ground morality in God. It's a divine command theory or of sorts where people use God's nature as a grounding for morality. So there's a lot of Christians who don't even hold to any of the moral argument, and the more I learn about it, the less confident I am in it myself.
And that's great to hear. That's great to hear, Eddie.
Well, I mean, if something's a bad argument, you should abandon it. You shouldn't hold on to it.
So at some point, let's go through the list of all the reasons, because I think there's a lot to be said there.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, just not at 1:21 a.m. when we've already
of course
gone
not.
for 4 hours already. But we'll have a few questions. If you guys got questions, get them in now, because we're about to do the rippity rap.
By the way, I have a funny story about Catholic traditionalists at some point if you want to hear it.
Oh my god.
Oh, definitely on the next stream. Not now, because my patience has worn thin with him tonight.
That's why I wanted to tell you.
As soon as I asked him to come on, he just disappeared, because I was like, "Oh well, come face the gauntlet," and he ran. But I'll do this one real quick. I'm sure other ones will funnel in. As to the Christians, if God is the standard, if God is the standard for morality, then someone killing a baby wouldn't be immoral, because we'd only be trying to reach the standard, right?
No. Because if he's the creator and he's the measurement to it, and he gives us laws or rules to follow, then we follow those rules or laws. And if he says murder is wrong, then we don't murder.
And if he says he can do it, then he can do it, no problems.
So we don't get morality from trying to act like God. We don't get it from his nature. We get it from acting by his commands. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what divine command theory is it's commands that flow from the nature of God.
But if it flows from his nature, and his nature kills babies, then it must not be coming from his nature.
We're not God. We don't have that authority. We were created by God.
No, I'm asking about where do these commands come from? Because you said the commands come from his nature.
I'm not going into this tonight. It's a whole.
well. Would you answer at least, like, do you think that it's kind of the Romans 2:15 on your heart, so to speak? Is that it's written within us?
I do believe, yes, there is overall moral law written on our hearts, but it can be very, very construed or skewed
but wouldn't, if I wrote it right on yours, how would you know the difference between that standard? That I have a major problem with, especially with that verse, because it's like it's essentially just saying it's written in all of our hearts, right? Well, by that standard, like, you're gonna always come out smelling like roses, depending on whatever standard is set, whatever's written. You wouldn't be able to know. It's essentially just ingrained into you. Right?
No, I don't think that one goes by intuition on everything. No, it's intuition can be wrong. I think that's why we have special revelation with the Bible.
Yeah, I guess I have a problem with the idea that if I had said it, right, if I kind of had this standard of Romans 2:15, and I could set that on, write it on your heart, then you wouldn't know any better, at least unless you're just going to concede the point that you're not necessarily going to know those things. But then I think
he said special revelation. He said we have special revelation, and that can help us tell the difference between the two.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole there's a
Sure,
lot.
yeah, we could go really far into that.
And I am not taking Eddie to this level for the record, but that very much goes down the path of like the Darth argument, where it's this is because I say it is, because the Bible says it is.
Yeah.
And I know, Eddie, I know you're gonna say that, but that's what it appears.
No. Yeah.
And that's what I said. We can, and that's why I said I'm not trying to misrepresent you. That's just what it sounds like, but we can have that conversation at another time. But we do have
Oz is atheist Eddie, and Eddie is theist Oz.
Next question. If God made the earth, how can one know that is changeable and what should remain sacred? And if life is sacred, why kill everyone on earth? And I assume that's for the theists.
I've talked enough. I'll let the other two guys.
So I guess this is my biggest, and like it always comes back to this. Like I've heard this argument, and we've been talking about it already. Is we have on one end, like here's the beginning of the story, right? Here's the beginning, and X happens. So here's the flood, right? He kills all, and like now this is the moral standard, or something like that. But then we completely ignore, even from a literal perspective, the other things that come after that develop the relationship with God. Because keep in mind, it's also in time and space as well. So maybe I'm probably completely fallible in all this. So like I'll open that up for a quick rundown from TJump and the guys.
I mean, I'm not sure how that resolves the problem.
Well, it does resolve the problem because there's time and space. There's a sequence of events, right? So what we're doing is we're saying.
But the sequence of events doesn't change the immorality of an event. Again, unless.
And if I can just pause just on a because Cease's when it comes to philosophy and all that is much more brilliant than I am. So yeah, I'm just going to try to describe it just from a common sense basis. Wiping out humanity is fucked up.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what the prescription is. It doesn't matter what the reason is. The fact that you wiped out your creation because you fucked up is bad. It shows that you, as a creator, as the originator, you were off. You made a mistake. And instead of owning up to the fact that you made a mistake, you tried to wipe it out.
Yeah, it's kind of like the idea where you're just like, oh shit, let me retry that again. You know what I mean? Like it just seems so, like, why did you had everything you needed? Why?
That's one of the reasons that the story doesn't make sense literally.
But it doesn't make sense metaphorically. How do you translate that metaphorically into something that is coherent?
Well, because using typology, it's got a lot of parallels to who Christ was and his life. Johnny
Babies has a parallel to.
We're talking about the flood.
Yeah, we're talking about the flood, homie.
Yes. Yeah. Flood. There is typological prophecy there.
So here's the question, J. Mike. Then if that's the case, right, you just balled up your paper. Now you go grab your paper and tell it you're sorry, and that you promise you never do it again.
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
That still doesn't change what's happening.
Yeah, I don't. But I also wouldn't take any utterance of let's say something that's like that and then burn it or kill it or make one version of that or one section of that more important than the other, right? It's
but
we wouldn't do that. wouldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Cease. He didn't just do it once; he did it twice. He fucked up twice and had to try to fix his mistake, and then to try to and Eddie and all the theists. Like I love you. All the ones that go to the New Testament, they're like, well, like this was already prophesied in the Old Testament. No, when you have hundreds of years in between the text to write, you can make up those stories. You can make the correlations. That's really irrelevant to the fact that God, this creator God, had to erase his mistakes twice to try to make up for it and to reestablish his perfect creation. I'm lost.
Well, here's the thing, though.
That's why taking it
problems. I'm sorry, Eddie. What's up?
No, I said that's why taking it literally, wooden literal sense, causes all kinds of problems.
Well, I mean,
but then taking it metaphorically, then yes, I could read Spider-Man metaphorically and take it as the gospel.
Yeah, reading Mein Kampf metaphorically means it's totally fine.
It's not metaphorically. It's typological prophecy.
Hold on, Eddie. Would you give the most dire message in a metaphor, or would you be straight up honest about it so the recipient understands what you're saying, or would you cloud it up? The most dire message of all time with metaphors.
Eddie, it seems like when there's an argument against Scripture, then you want to say that it's metaphorical, and the rest of the time you want to say that it's evidence.
No.
Believe in.
Everybody is pressing a wooden literal sense onto Scripture that is not. It is a collection of documents and books, and they all have different meanings and purposes and things of this nature. It's,
okay.
You just take
Eddie,
you reading. Just
okay, Eddie. Perfect. If that is what it all is, then how in the world do any of us believe that is the truth? That is the way.
Am I literally going to hell or metaphorically going to hell? Jesus metaphorically died on the cross, or it's just like, at what point does that stop?
Eddie, I can agree with you.
There
are better ways.
Hold on. No. I'm being serious right now.
I gotta bounce, man. I can't sit here and just keep having 1,000 questions shot at me. I gotta get.
Okay. All right.
Good talking to you. See you later.
All right.
Eddie.
And that's my thing with that is and I love Eddie and he knows that, but that's my issue with that argument is, do we take it literal or is it metaphorical or is it, however you want to describe it, because it's got to be one or the other. It can't be both.
But the thing is, even if he's entirely right and we take it metaphorically, that doesn't resolve the problem as to why should we accept that as truth, whether it's metaphorical or literal. On what grounds, what methodology do you apply to show that these things aren't just imaginary? Let's take it metaphorically.
I mean, what kind of excuse could you use? Like if someone, because I always get this on Discord a lot. It's kind of like, well, science couldn't answer this and they were wrong about this. It's like, well, what if I just posit, well, that was metaphorical, right? The new answer is the literal one. It's just like, it seems like yeah, you wouldn't accept that from me, but you can do it. And that seems just so weird to me.
Yeah, it's funny. We ask for evidence, right? And we want that, and then they want to then give us, well, just take this on. It's either allegory or a made up story. It's no, you don't just get to give us made up stories or allegories and us accept it. That's not fact. That's not evidence. We need it to be lined out. Hopefully, I made sense there when I was talking to Eddie.
I want to shout out to Eddie real quick, Mark and Jim, and just because the fact that you come on and deal with that it's just good. I want to appreciate that though, because I do like Eddie.
Well, and I was gonna say before we close out, Mark, you joined on late. Mark, anything you want to say? You want to add in? You didn't get to talk much.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So you did. I'm not making an objection. I just want to just to see.
Everyone tag Mark.
Just asking a question. So why? Let's take the free will kind of route that a theist could go. So you mentioned that humans would be God's mistake. You know, why would you come to that conclusion? I know that there's lots of mysteries in what free will is, if it does exist, or, you know, stuff like that. If we assume that it does exist, what would be?
Yeah, because he's the only one with the control to change that.
Well, it's more that you can still have free will without suffering. So the fact that God put suffering in the world doesn't proves he's immoral, because you can have it without suffering. He put suffering in unnecessarily, therefore God's immoral.
Well, why do you think that he put it in?
He says it in the Bible. I created evil.
Okay, where I don't know where that's said, but anyway, I don't take the Bible to be inerrant either, but
he in a way does imply that he created evil.
Isaiah 45:7. I form the light, create the darkness. I make the peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and I think it would be another reason for me to deny it literal and or not even a literal interpretation, but inerrancy. But that's still my question is, it's if we do assume something like free will, why would you say God would be responsible for the mistakes of humans or something like that?
Because he could have formed the universe differently. He could have added a different law of physics that made less suffering in the world without affecting free will. So, for example, he could have added one extra law that was, it's physically impossible to force someone to do something they don't consent to. So, like, I can't just free will to fly right now. I can't use my free will to fly. But that doesn't violate free will, right? Because free will isn't about your ability to do literally anything you want. So he could have added one extra physical restriction without changing anything about our free will, which was that it's impossible to force someone to do something they don't consent to. So it's impossible to kill them or whatever. And that would have made the universe significantly more immoral. But he didn't do that, which means he caused unnecessary suffering and evil and pain and immorality, which means he must not be perfectly moral. He's responsible for not doing that. We didn't do that. We didn't like freely choose to make the universe like this. He chose.
But we could still freely choose to act on those evil desires, and then it's also what level of restriction do you place on humanity? Because if you limit them totally to say that they can't do any sort of evil, to what extent are they free? I think that there could be a line there that we don't see.
Mark, if you had AI. Well, Mark, if you had
the victim, like they don't get free will when they're being victimized by someone doing violence on them.
Right.
And there's another question
Hey guys, hold on. Anytime we get a super chat, I'm gonna cut everybody off. Shane Skeptic for $5 said, "Of course, I believe in free will. I have no choice." Christopher Hitchens. Go ahead.
Okay, now I forgot.
So I just wanted to mention this is no more of a restriction than the restriction we cannot fly. So this isn't a restriction we're adding. We can still do evil. We can still think evil thoughts. We can still covet our neighbors' wives. We can still lie. There's still tons of evil we can do here. This isn't the problem. We can still, everything about who we are is exactly the same. And in fact, he actually does this for many people on the world, like Stephen Hawking, who was a paraplegic. He was physically incapable of harming other people because he was in a wheelchair. So what I'm asking here isn't something that isn't possible. It's actually quite easy to do given the laws of physics. And God didn't do it. God gave us these extra powers to hurt people in unnecessary evil ways for no benefit, because we can still do all of the other stuff just fine, when he could have taken those away just by adding this one extra law of physics and didn't. So clearly that's not our fault. Like we had no control over that.
So I'm just saying that there could be a line there that is drawn to what extent do we have free will. So if we can't do evil at all and we can only do good, then there's not really a way we can choose or not choose God, right? Because
no. Again, so I can't nuke other countries. I do not have the free will to launch a nuclear weapon into other countries. There are certain evils I can't do because I don't have the power. So this one thing I'm changing means that there are other. It's kind of like giving everyone the option to not, or preventing everyone from using a nuke. So no one will be able to use a nuke. No one will have that power. That's not a bad thing. That would be a good thing. We can add these extra laws and still do evil. So we're not getting rid of evil. You can still keep all the evils like lying and cheating on your wife or whatever. So we can still do evils. Evils are still there. We're not getting rid of all evils. We're adding one extra law of physics, which is like saying I can't fly. Well, now also I can't nuke people and I can't shoot people. Oh no. What a terrible loss to the universe that freedom will be.
Well, you don't have a stand. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well,
I'm gonna have to think about that, and it's a serious objection. I can see.
Well, I want to ask you and Mark real fast, if I can, before I forget, or TJump and Mark, and see what you think. Would you say it's somewhat analogous to like creating AI, right? You give it free will, and you give it the ability, right? It goes and it burns your house down, right? Is it your fault or the AI's fault? Could the guy have prevented or made it the case where it doesn't go and burn the house down? I mean, that's kind of how.
Yeah, I would not have given my AI a flamethrower arm. Like, why did I do that? Why did I put a flamethrower arm on my AI? Like,
to sort of just, I guess it would be to somewhat sort of test it, right? So, like, with great intelligence, like with the higher intelligence you have, the more good you can cause, but the more evil you can cause as well. Sort of like the more power you have, the more bad you can cause, but also the more good you can cause, because you could stop more wars, but you could create more wars too.
But Mark, God clearly doesn't care about free will anywhere in the Bible.
You're really quiet, Cease. We can barely hear you.
Can you hear me okay? No?
Yeah, a little louder.
Better? I'm saying that God doesn't care about free will in the Bible. He constantly intervenes when something is taking place that he disagrees with. The entire concept of heaven and hell undermines any care about free will in any extended sense. I just don't see God's concern for free will here. I think these are just evasions to try to sort of ignore the contradictions found in the Bible and found in this characterization of this God.
Mm-hmm.
God hardened Pharaoh's heart.
Yeah, like he steps on free will constantly, and then when we see evil, now we're told that it's because he's trying to let us be free. And again, I ask, whose free will does he care about? Because the victim who's being hurt, they're having their freedom infringed upon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this would have to play into why would God just leave us alone, kind of thing too.
Well, why would he give a domestic experience for Saul and not anybody else, right? Well, if he did it for Richard Dawkins, I think it would make a really good case for a lot of other people who look up to him, right? I mean,
yeah, the problem with divine hiddenness.
I'm gonna jump in here just for time's sake, because we've been going a long time now. Randolph in the chat, yes. If we were going longer, we'd definitely have you in. Randolph's going to have a debate on the second here with a gentleman named Zach on the existence of God. So you definitely want to check into that when we do that. But Jim, anything you want to say? Any arguments that you wanted to throw out before we sign off for the night?
I mean, no major arguments, but I definitely think I was the dumb guy in the room tonight, which is a good thing. It's a good thing because you guys were really smart, so I appreciate it. TJump, it was great to actually kind of talk to you in person. I've watched a lot of stuff on Modern Day Debate and everything like that, so I highly admire you.
Thanks. Nice to meet you too.
So appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have a few more conversations with you as well.
Definitely.
So thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, this is what I do. So J Mike and Cease, they have a channel together. So whichever one of you want to plug your channel, go do it right now.
Go ahead. Or me? Okay.
I couldn't find my mouse fell, and I was like, I'll just do you because I'm muted and I don't know where it is. Yeah, go, buddy.
Yeah. So we have a podcast on YouTube. It's called Axioms on Trial. We host debates. We talk to theists, atheists, science educators.
We destroy TJump on his moral philosophy as well. Right?
So definitely not.
It's funny because I don't find myself agreeing with the more like I there's levels of it where I do, right, and I don't find problems with it, but I find myself like on Facebook groups defending TJump for TJump who have problems with it because I'm like, look, I'm a more realist and I don't take his position, but you don't understand what his position is, so let me help you, right, so you have a better understanding. But and so now everyone just thinks that I have that position as well, and I'm like, I mean maybe, but not now, not currently.
But yeah. Please look us up. Axioms on Trial. I think we have a show tomorrow, right, Mike?
Yes, indeed. If I got my internet to work, and so
great.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Why we didn't do one today.
Awesome. And if you love seeing somebody come out with their chest hair hanging out, Cease to Know is your guy. He's gonna come out sexy chest hair hanging out.
Yeah, that's the reason I subbed to that channel in the first place.
And TJump, and actually we just did a review of TJump and Batman on my show, the Ozone Show. Did a blast doing that today. But TJump, he's one of our favorites at the Atheist Roundtable. But TJump, real quick, where do they find you? How do they find you? And I know you love making money, but where do they find you? Yeah, I'm at youtube.com/TJump. I do agriculture and grow potatoes. You can find me gardening tips, great sources of fertilizer. I knew he was going to do something.
TJump, your destruction of that Prezup guy was amazing. Right? It was one of the funniest things I've seen in a while.
The Batman one that Oz was reviewing?
No, the one where the guy destroyed himself on the law of non-contradiction and didn't understand the difference. Or, I mean, I'm sorry, the law of identity. I'm sorry.
Which one was that?
I can't remember his name.
It was a couple of weeks ago. It was a Prezup guy who was getting basic logic wrong, and then he didn't know what begging the question was.
Oh, that's the guy.
William Heath, is that it? William Hereth?
That's one. Yeah, that's one of the guys. I actually messaged TJump. I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
it was so entertaining.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, that was bad. That was terrible. But everybody's been involved tonight, and even the ones that prior Eddie, Mike, everybody's involved tonight. We appreciate it, and we'll come at you tomorrow night. We're going to do the New Year's Eve Atheist Roundtable Bash or whatever you want to call it. If you want to be part of it, just let me know. We'll get you included, and be safe, man. Appreciate you.
Welcome to Let's Get It, the Atheist Roundtable.
That was terrible. Let's do that again.
How's the mic? What you doing? What up with Eddie? Why he sweaty on your noodle? I don't get it. He lost his shit. The whole kid caboodle. Now pause. You alls. Everybody tell him that he's a lost cause. Who's the ass in the hat? Half Christian ass. Always talking this and talking that. And Benji on the epistemology. You got claims, got beliefs. What's your confidence? And is it relevant? Nah. Just Jeff. What's next? What text you gonna put to the test? Put to the test, little troll face weasel on TikTok, looking like a beetle juice. And what do you do when a member of your crew sits in a shed with the dead? I don't know what's up. Anybody seen TJump? Now the newest member of the crew. The Tart debut. Here's your preview. It's K Nabs. She says she's the live stream queen. Welcome to the team. Yeah. Welcome to the team.
The Atheist Roundtable.
Is faith a reliable pathway to truth?
Hey, yo, Oz, are we going on a deep dive?
Faith is bullshit. Jesus in the morning.